They both have skin that's darker than mine or Donald Trump's, even when he's slathered in makeup. And so, you know, he wrote on Truth Social that they had, quote, the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people and are lunatics, mentally deranged and sick who look like they should be institutionalized. This is the President of the United States. Can you imagine Ronald Reagan saying something like that? Can you imagine George W. Bush or his father saying something like that? Can you imagine Dwight Eisenhower, this man with great dignity, who led the battle against the Nazis and against the Japanese, but specifically, he was in the European theater, the Nazis, and became president for 8 years, a Republican, talking like that? I mean, he labeled them low IQ, which is Trump's favorite slur for women, black people, and Hispanic people. Anybody, you know, anybody who's not a rich white man. He suggested they should come back where they came from, go back where they came from. He called Robert De Niro deranged, demented, and criminal. In all caps, criminal. When the President of the United States starts saying that, you know, that actor, that private citizen is a criminal, or these members of Congress don't belong here in the United States, we got a problem. I mean, this might have been normal politics in the Confederacy. It might have been normal politics in the era of Woodrow Wilson, the Democratic racist president who screened Birth of a Nation in the White House, the Klan recruiting film that led to an explosion, a resurgence of the Klan in the 1920s. It's not normal anymore. Hasn't been normal for a while. And Donald Trump is trying to reinvigorate it. I mean, this is an elderly man. He's 79 years old. He's living back in the 50s. But, I mean, even in the 50s, like I said, Dwight Eisenhower, who was president from 52 to 60, never talked like this. But this is an elderly man whose father was busted at a Klan rally and who himself was busted by the feds for refusing to rent apartments to black people. And he's now occupying the Oval Office and using language that sounds like it was scraped off, you know, the bottom of somebody's shoe. I mean, this out of the darkest parts of the internet. I mean, what he's fundamentally trying to do here, and he knows this, by the way, is he's trying to dehumanize these people so that his racist, fanatic, fascist, violent base will target them. I mean, he's going after a couple of Supreme Court members yesterday or this morning as well. And we've seen what happens. I mean, you know, one of his supporters murdered Melissa Hartmann and her husband, the former Speaker of the Minnesota House. Another one of his supporters tried to murder Nancy Pelosi's husband. Another one of his supporters tried to murder a federal judge. Her son got in the way. He killed him. Another one of Trump's supporters sent bombs to Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Thankfully, they didn't go off. I mean, he was an incompetent bomb maker. But here's Trump. He's trying to dehumanize these. He's saying that they should be, quote, sent overseas as soon as possible. I mean, this is a political strategy that is classic fascism. Identify a minority group. In the case of Hitler, it was Jews. In the case of Mussolini, it was immigrants. In Trump's case, it's immigrants and black people. Identify a minority, and the trans community in particular. Identify a minority, vilify them, otherize them, cause the majority to think that, oh, those people aren't like us. They're different from us. The rules that protect us don't apply to them. You know, this is, the members of Congress are not props. They are co-equal representatives of we the people. And Donald Trump so terribly disrespected the Democrats in Congress. That they, like I said yesterday, they should not have shown up. But they have every right to speak out. And, if they break the decorum of the House of Representatives or the Senate or the combined, the body, let the body deal with it. Let them censure them. Let them expel them. Let them, whatever. But they have that right. This is the United States. We have the First Amendment. And then you've got Donald Trump calling Robert De Niro a criminal for speech in America. I mean, that should chill anyone who cares about the First Amendment. And by the way, he wasn't joking. This is how Putin started, declaring that Alexei Navalny and the people who opposed him, who were pointing out how corrupt he was. Keep in mind, Navalny's whole shtick, the thing that catapulted him to nearly becoming president of Russia, was his nonprofit, anti-corruption nonprofit that had targeted the corruption of Vladimir Putin and the oligarchs around him. And that's why they murdered him. So Trump, after he goes through this rant on his Nazi-infested social media site, he says, America is now bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before. Well, that word richer is doing a lot of work in that sentence. I mean, if you're in the top 1% or 0.5% or 1/4%, yeah, you're a hell of a lot richer now, thanks to Trump's tax cuts. But everybody else, we've got an affordability crisis, we've got a student loan crisis, we've got a healthcare crisis, grocery prices are skyrocketing, fossil fuel prices are going to be going up, or have been. The diversity of America is not a flaw the way that Trump is characterizing it. It's the genius.
We say fight back!
Hey, good morning or afternoon or whatever it may be for you. Next week, today is Friday, but next week we start the Free Speech TV fundraising drive. And so this is just sort of a let's get ready, a preparation, as it were, an anticipation of how it's going to work out. But that doesn't mean that you can't make a contribution right now and get ahead of the curve, right? You can go over to freespeech.org or call 877-378-8669 and make a contribution right now. You can also ask them about what's involved in including Free Speech TV in your will. There's lots of things that can be done. So, and you will be hearing from me and from folks at Free Speech TV throughout the coming week as we do this pledge drive. After all, Free Speech TV is kept alive by you. It's, we got no billionaires and no corporate sponsors. It's all you. So thank you for watching Free Speech TV and supporting us. Good day. America is in the grip of something larger than a partisan clash. What we're witnessing is a steady consolidation of power over the institutions that sustain self-government. The courts, the ballot, the border, the press. Each story tonight stands on its own, but taken together, they sketch a portrait of a republic under strain. First, the media. Netflix has abandoned its $83 billion bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. That clears the path for Paramount Skydance to take control, potentially placing CNN and CBS News under the same corporate roof. Journalists inside both organizations are sounding alarms. The concern is not simply downsizing, it is direction. David Ellison has acknowledged conversations with Donald Trump that included CNN. His father, Larry Ellison, the largest shareholder in Paramount Skydance, reportedly discussed removing anchors who have drawn Trump's anger. At CBS, Barry Weiss was installed as editor-in-chief last fall, and amid regulatory pressure from Trump-aligned officials, despite lacking any television experience whatsoever. Press freedom advocates warn that corporate consolidation paired with political access can dull the edge of independent reporting. The deal still faces antitrust review, yet the trajectory is clear. When news organizations become assets in the portfolios of billionaires with political interests, journalism risks becoming negotiation instead of investigation. In Buffalo, New York, a Rohingya refugee named Nurul Amin Shah Alam was dropped off by Border Patrol agents at what officials described as a warm and safe location near his last known address. Alam was nearly blind, walked with a stick, and spoke little English. 5 days later, he was found dead. Surveillance footage later revealed that the Tim Hortons where he was left was closed. He stood alone in the freezing parking lot in below freezing temperatures for more than an hour after the store shut. Agents did not contact his family or his lawyer. Even after the video emerged, the Department of Homeland Security continued to describe the location as warm and safe, a lie. Local officials have called the death preventable and disturbing. The larger issue is not only negligence, it's whether truth still constrains power. When official statements persist in defiance of documented evidence, public trust collapses. Democracies rely on accountability, and without it, cruelty becomes administrative routine. Overseas, the United States may be approaching direct military action against Iran. The State Department has ordered non-essential personnel and their families out of Israel. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sent a message shortly after midnight urging staff to book flights immediately. American citizens were advised to consider departing while commercial options remain. Diplomatic talks in Geneva ended without resolution. No joint statements followed. 2 carrier strike groups are positioned in the region. Oman's foreign minister rushed to Washington to press for more time. Vice President Vance has said that there's no chance the United States will be drawn into years of war. It also acknowledged uncertainty about whether Trump will authorize a strike. The next round of talks is scheduled in Vienna, though. Whether it occurs is uncertain. Constitutional balance here is at stake. The authority to declare war rests exclusively with Congress. When momentum builds through executive channels without sustained public debate, we the people are distanced from the gravest decision a nation can make. At home, scrutiny has turned toward the machinery of voting itself. The FBI recently raided the Fulton County Elections Office using a debunked affidavit. Tulsi Gabbard was present. She had earlier overseen the seizure of voting equipment in Puerto Rico, despite the territory's transition to paper ballots. Donald Trump has publicly called for nationalizing elections in multiple jurisdictions. The legal pathway traces back to Executive Order 13848, originally crafted to sanction foreign election interference. Amendments permit property to be blocked during active investigations without conclusive proof. Critics warn that voting machines could be seized and evidence classified, leaving states unable to certify their own results in a timely manner. Even if courts later intervene, the delay alone can corrode confidence. Self-government depends on the peaceful acceptance of verified outcomes. Undermine that faith, and the structure weakens. Across media consolidation, border enforcement, military brinksmanship, and election control, a pattern is emerging. Authority concentrates while transparency recedes. The health of a democracy is measured not by the power of its leaders, but by the resilience of its checks. When those checks falter, the burden shifts to citizens to demand the restoration. And that's the way it is Friday, February 27th, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann. Hey, top of the Friday to you. TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. It's the end of the week, the beginning of the weekend, and a lot to talk about today. Is a secret plot already in motion to take the election out of voters' hands? Seriously. Also, panic is erupting as Trump issued a rare late-night order. Good luck to us all. Yeah, right. Is this going to finally get Epstein off the front page? We'll talk about that. We're talking about a war with Iran, of course. And a crazy alert, Trump viewed the shooting of Cricket as an asset, while most Americans did not. Cricket the dog. In the second hour of our program, Trump and Republicans proposed lowering monthly ACA bills, but raising the annual deduction to $31,000. Is that even insurance? We'll talk about that in the second hour. Also, does the arrest of a Columbia student show we no longer have a civil society, at least when it comes to ICE? And the third hour of our program is CNN, the new CBS. And in a typical tyrannical retribution way, there's now a probe into Jerome Powell. Is tyranny becoming normalized? Sure is looking that way. But my daily take today over at HartmannReport.com, pretty straightforward stuff. It's about this article in the Washington Post that appeared yesterday that, well, here's a quote from it. This is the opening paragraph. Pro-Trump activists who say they are in coordination with the White House are circulating a 17-page draft executive order that claims China interfered in the 2020 election as a basis to declare a national emergency that would unlock extraordinary presidential power over voting. I'll let that sink in for a minute. The guy behind this is Jerome Corsi, who's been on this program a couple of dozen times over the years. Jerome Corsi, back in the early days, I mean, back in the early 2000s, was the guy who wrote the book claiming that Barack Obama wasn't born in the United States, that launched the birther movement. Before that, in 2004, he wrote the book claiming that John Kerry faked his military service in Vietnam and wounded himself. The whole stolen valor thing that arguably handed the re-election to George W. Bush in 2004. So Jerome Corsi has been a dirty tricks guy, and that's, a very clean way of saying it, a destroy democracy guy, a rig elections guy for the hard right, for the Republicans and their right-wing billionaire buddies for decades. And he's now behind this thing. Now, Trump has been, as his poll numbers continue to collapse, he's been basically screaming into the void, do something, somebody, please, right? I mean, he got the red states, he's starting with Texas, to re-gerrymander, to reduce the number of Democratic seats in Congress. He and the Republicans are recruiting election observers to challenge signatures on mail-in ballots. At an industrial level. You'll recall Greg Palast pointed out that if 4.2 or 4.7, depending on whose numbers you're using, state or federal, qualified U.S. citizen voters had not been either purged from the voting rolls because they were black mostly, or denied the right to vote, again, mostly because they were black, then you would have Kamala Harris as president right now, and the Democrats would control the House of Representatives. So, but that's not going to be enough to help him this time because Trump is just totally in the crapper, poll-wise. So this piece in the Washington Post says that, this is what they're up to. Now, this is the key to this is understanding that they're talking about an emergency. You will recall this whole thing of the Chinese got into our elections was, part of the rationale for seizing the ballots in Georgia. Tulsi Gabbard, the Russian agent who is in charge of our national security now, really is at the center of all this, apparently. And this declare an emergency and then mess with the elections. This is an old song, right? This is what Hitler did in 1933 after the Reichstag fire. After the Parliament building, the Reichstag was burned by Marius van der Lubbe, the Dutch communist, mentally ill Dutch communist. He was probably put up to it by the Nazis. Hitler, went out and called a press conference and got on radio and said, "This is a sign from God that I'm supposed to rule." And that was it for fair elections in Germany. In Turkey in 2016, while Erdogan was out of town, his military tried to stage a coup. He came back, they put down the coup, and basically they haven't had a decent election ever since then. He arrested teachers, judges, tens of thousands of protesters. The media outlets were shut down because he said they were fake news. Another emergency. Vladimir Putin did the same thing. in 1999 with a series of apartment bombings in Moscow that they blamed it on the Chechens. And so he bombed the crap out of Chechnya and declared an emergency and took over the elections in Russia. Viktor Orban did this in Hungary. He declared a state of crisis over the Syrian refugees coming in 2015. And he's maintained that state of emergency ever since. I mean, there's a common thread in all this, and that is that wannabe dictators declare a state of emergency, a crisis, and then use the extraordinary powers that come from that crisis within the democracy to destroy the democracy. And frankly, right now, Trump doesn't have much of a basis to declare a state of emergency. But if he succeeds, if he hits Iran hard enough that instead of doing a symbolic reaction to us, the last time Trump was president when he bombed Iran, they literally called him up and said, we're going to send back some retaliatory missiles, to this army base. And so Trump evacuated the army base and shot those missiles out of the sky. It was purely theater on both sides. But if Trump actually hurts Iran, if he seriously damages them, and they activate their proxy networks, there are Iranian agents in the United States right now. There are Iranian agents throughout Europe. There are millions of people aligned with Iran in the Middle East, between Hezbollah and, there's just a whole bunch, and Hamas, and there's just a whole bunch of these organizations. If he does that, we could be looking at another 9/11, which frankly is what I think Trump is trying to provoke. And, think back to what happened on 9/11. George W. Bush used that not only to get himself reelected, but also to pass the Patriot Act, to consolidate all of our intelligence agencies, to take the word from Rudolf Hess, Heimat, the homeland, and apply it here in the United States as if we are some sort of ethnic homeland. I mean, we are, we're not Israel. We're not South Africa. We are, we are a melting pot country. So, and in every case, these temporary emergencies turned into permanent ones. So let me encourage you to call your members of Congress, particularly if they're Republicans, at 202-224-3121, and let them know that you don't think that Trump's state of emergency, no matter how he does it, particularly if he uses an Iranian crisis that he himself creates, is something that they should use to destroy our elections or to rig our elections or to seize control of our elections. This is a naked power play worthy of Hitler, Putin, Erdogan, Orban, pick your dictator. That's the direction Trump is trying to take this country.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
15 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Gus, listening to 104.1 in Woodstock, New York. Hey, Gus, what's up?
Good morning, Tom. There's a phrase that you say, and it's very positive. It's like something is not an option. You know the one I mean?
Yeah, despair is not an option. I stole it from Bernie Sanders.
It. So that inspired me to write something about that. Just like maybe a 1-minute thing. It says, why do we not eradicate inequality in our society? The hypocrisy of our government officials, the pollution of our land and air, and the dull technological routines that slowly take their toll on all our lives. Yet we can reaffirm the power of people to change their lives and to fill their every hour with joy and creativity. A clarion call to our future. That's it.
Sweet. Gus, thank you. Well done. Great rant. Jessica in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thank you for your show and for you and Luis always working so hard.
Thank you.
Tom, you're welcome. I was warned by family and friends, do not watch the State of the Union. So I
That it would be triggering?
Yeah, my blood pressure. But here's the thing. I complied for a little while. Then I was about to go to sleep, so I turned it on for a couple minutes. I was so upset at the part I turned it on. A few tears even rolled down my face. The killer clown was talking about Venezuela, a falsely called drug boat. And I'll quote him because I couldn't believe it. So he starts out, nobody wants to go fishing anymore. And he starts laughing. But the worst part is all his Republican clowns start laughing loudly too.
Yeah.
And then he says, we have very seriously damaged their fishing industry, and he starts laughing loudly. And then, of course, all his Republicans are laughing loudly too.
Yeah.
And Tom, if they tell you who they are, believe them. Those Republican clowns were broadcasting loudly how heartless and cruel and brutal, inhumane they are. And I was so horrified to have no care about the world and about killing 150 innocent human lives. And they've only been proven to be fishermen up to this time. And those horrific Republicans are just laughing. They laugh along with fearless leader. I shut that off. Yeah. And then guess what I did? The next morning, Tom, I called some senators to tell them how inhumane that was and to show that recording of Trump and the senators laughing and to have an ad. And so when I called Senator Whitehouse's number, the staff liked that idea, and they gave me the number for the DNC, and they said, call them. So I did. And Tom, I was thinking of another ad, because I always think of things you say, how there's 70,000 people in detainment centers. Well, another ad I told them, tell the American taxpayer how he pays $700 a day to detain one migrant. Right. And then I Googled it, Tom. The taxpayers are expected to pay this annually, $14 billion annually on those detainment centers to be able to hold those people.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, Jessica, those detainment centers are not just for migrants.
They're not.
No.
There are Americans in them.
They will be coming for other Americans soon. Jessica, I got to run, but thank you for the call and good luck. That is so great what you're doing. Thank you. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So Vivek Ramaswamy, during the first Republican debate, was laying out his vision for America. And by the way, he was the #2 guy in the debate, according to the Washington Post, in which he was arguing that we should basically do away with all of our federal agencies. Really, virtually all of them. Just shut them down and make them go away. He's not the first person to argue this. David Koch, running on the Libertarian ticket in 1980 for vice president, was arguing the same thing. He had a long list of federal agencies he wanted to shut down. This is not an uncommon thing among billionaires, and Ramaswamy is a billionaire. They basically want to take America back to the 1920s, before we had what they call the welfare state. And if they do so, they will turn America into a failed state. They want to make America into something like Haiti or Libya, and that would be a disaster. There's a whole article about it that you can read all the details. It's titled, Is Vivek Ramaswamy a Different Kind of Republican Cat? At HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
Heard a whisper in the marble halls, paper plans behind closed doors. They say it's just security, but we've heard that lie before. They're talking crisis, talking threat, talking fear we can't ignore. But every time they shout emergency, they're reaching for more. When the powerful start trembling, when the polls don't go their way, they don't fix what's broken, they just try to rig the game. It's a secret plot in the dead of night, dressed up in red, white, and blue. Say it's for the country, say it's for our safety, but they're coming for me and you. If they can't win with the people's voice, they'll shut the people out. It's a secret plot to steal the shot and drown democracy out.
There you go, 22 minutes past the hour. So panic erupted across the Middle East. This was this morning because the Trump administration issued this rare order to all Americans in Israel saying, get the hell out. The actual phrase was, consider leaving while commercial flights are still available. Are still available? You mean they may not be available? You mean like the whole region is going to shut down because we're going to be plunging ourselves into World War III or something? Trump does need a crisis in order to seize the elections. You know, it's so anyhow. They said that violent extremists are plotting possible attacks in Israel. All right. The administration's also mobilized this massive buildup. Monica Marks, who's a scholar and assistant professor at New York University, Abu Dhabi, said, quote, this suggests a high likelihood that Israel and the U.S. ignite another war with Iran this weekend. Another, Rihanna Kalak, another journalist with 300,000 followers on X, wrote, not a good sign unless you're rooting for a big regional U.S.-Iran war. This, you know, the Constitution says only Congress can declare war. And yet Trump is rolling ahead anyway. Where's Congress? Well, the Republicans on Congress, they've all decided, hey, if we're going to have a fascist nation, so be it. We just want to be, you know, we just want the perks of office, right? We want to have the lobbyists lavish us with, you know, meals and vacations and you know, $1 million jobs when we leave Congress and large contributions. And what the Supreme Court has now said are not bribes, they're tips if you get the money after the fact. Meanwhile, our crazy alert for the day, this is genuinely nuts. It's Julia Ainsley is a reporter for NBC News, and she has a new book coming out. The title of the book is Undue Process, the Inside Story of Trump's Mass Deportation Program. And in her book, she talks about Kristi Noem killing Cricket, shooting her dog, you know, her 14-month-old dog. She described Cricket as, quote, less than worthless and said, I hated that dog. And she not only shot the dog, she also shot the family goat. Can you imagine what this did to her children? Well, I wonder what, you know, it's doing to her children that she's flying around the country in a floating bedroom with Corey Lewandowski instead of her husband. But that's a whole other thing. Some people predicted that would end her career in politics when that got leaked. And but it turns out, according to this new book by Julia Ainsley, that Donald Trump picked her to be Homeland Security Secretary, DHS Secretary, because she killed her dog. He wants someone who is a psychopath. He wants somebody who's heartless. He wants somebody who lacks empathy, someone who can cause suffering and not experience it themselves. It's exactly what he wants, and it's what he got. It's just crazy. Meanwhile, this is fascinating. The Lone Star Rising PAC is pointing out that Republicans and right-wing groups are spending millions of dollars on TV ads, text messages, and social media content to promote Jasmine Crockett over James Tallarico in the Democratic primary in Texas that wraps up on Tuesday. Early voting's underway right now. They believe that it'll be easier for a Republican to beat the black woman than the white man. I think they're making a big mistake. I really do. Jasmine Crockett is a brilliant communicator. And, you know, this is not a slam on James Tallarico. He's a great guy, too. Either one of them would make me very, very happy. But they think that by promoting Jasmine Crockett, they're going to get somebody that it'll be easier for a Republican to beat. And, you know, they've already got the attack ads, and I'm sure they're going to darken her skin and find something that she said sometime somewhere that they can use against her. All that kind of stuff. I mean, they would do, without the darkening of the skin, they'd do the same thing with Tallarico. This is how Republicans roll. They don't say, vote for us because we're going to do wonderful things for you. They say, vote for us because that guy over there is terrible. But this is interesting. This is a report from the Washington Post, highlights text messages to Texas voters. This is from a right-wing dark money group with deep Republican ties, featuring Crockett's positions on ICE. So they're promoting her by running ads talking about how she wants to shut down ICE or reform ICE. I find this fascinating. I mean, Tuesday can't come fast enough. I'm really curious how this is going to play out in Texas. Interesting times we live in, you know? So, it's Anything Goes weekend. What's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. Stick around. It's 27 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Right back with your calls. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, defending America from the weapons of mass deception. You know, we've all gotten so used to living in a country where people are trying to crowdfund, like, cancer research for children. St. Jude's is a wonderful charity, but we're the only developed country in the world that needs, you know, where you have to go to people and beg for money in order to treat children with cancer. Or Shriners, I mean, another great charity, but shouldn't we all be funding children who are born with birth defects and problems like that? We're probably the only country in the world where you can sell your life insurance policy because Social Security doesn't cover your retirement. I mean, it's probably not happening anywhere else in the world. Or reverse mortgage your home because you can't afford it. I mean, this is crazy that we are living in a country where No Kid Hungry, a charity. You can read all about it. There's a whole op-ed I wrote about this over at HartmanReport.com. It's titled America's Sickest Reality Show, Crowdfunding Cancer Care While Billionaires Hoard Billions. Check it out. Good day. America is in the grip of something larger than a partisan clash. What we're witnessing is a steady consolidation of power over the institutions that sustain self-government. The courts, the ballot, the border, the press. Each story tonight stands on its own, but taken together, they sketch a portrait of a republic under strain. First, the media. Netflix has abandoned its $83 billion bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. That clears the path for Paramount Skydance to take control, potentially placing CNN and CBS News under the same corporate roof. Journalists inside both organizations are sounding alarms. The concern is not simply downsizing, it is direction. David Ellison has acknowledged conversations with Donald Trump that included CNN. His father, Larry Ellison, the largest shareholder in Paramount Skydance, reportedly discussed removing anchors who have drawn Trump's anger. At CBS, Barry Weiss was installed as editor-in-chief last fall, and amid regulatory pressure from Trump-aligned officials, despite lacking any television experience whatsoever. Press freedom advocates warn that corporate consolidation paired with political access can dull the edge of independent reporting. The deal still faces antitrust review, yet the trajectory is clear. When news organizations become assets in the portfolios of billionaires with political interests, journalism risks becoming negotiation instead of investigation. In Buffalo, New York, a Rohingya refugee named Nurul Amin Shah Alam was dropped off by Border Patrol agents at what officials described as a warm and safe location near his last known address. Alam was nearly blind, walked with a stick, and spoke little English. 5 days later, he was found dead. Surveillance footage later revealed that the Tim Hortons where he was left was closed. He stood alone in the freezing parking lot in below freezing temperatures for more than an hour after the store shut. Agents did not contact his family or his lawyer. Even after the video emerged, the Department of Homeland Security continued to describe the location as warm and safe, a lie. Local officials have called the death preventable and disturbing. The larger issue is not only negligence, it's whether truth still constrains power. When official statements persist in defiance of documented evidence, public trust collapses. Democracies rely on accountability, and without it, cruelty becomes administrative routine. Overseas, the United States may be approaching direct military action against Iran. The State Department has ordered non-essential personnel and their families out of Israel. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sent a message shortly after midnight urging staff to book flights immediately. American citizens were advised to consider departing while commercial options remain. Diplomatic talks in Geneva ended without resolution. No joint statements followed. 2 carrier strike groups are positioned in the region. Oman's foreign minister rushed to Washington to press for more time. Vice President Vance has said that there's no chance the United States will be drawn into years of war. It also acknowledged uncertainty about whether Trump will authorize a strike. The next round of talks is scheduled in Vienna, though. Whether it occurs is uncertain. Constitutional balance here is at stake. The authority to declare war rests exclusively with Congress. When momentum builds through executive channels without sustained public debate, we the people are distanced from the gravest decision a nation can make. At home, scrutiny has turned toward the machinery of voting itself. The FBI recently raided the Fulton County Elections Office using a debunked affidavit. Tulsi Gabbard was present. She had earlier overseen the seizure of voting equipment in Puerto Rico, despite the territory's transition to paper ballots. Donald Trump has publicly called for nationalizing elections in multiple jurisdictions. The legal pathway traces back to Executive Order 13848, originally crafted to sanction foreign election interference. Amendments permit property to be blocked during active investigations without conclusive proof. Critics warn that voting machines could be seized and evidence classified, leaving states unable to certify their own results in a timely manner. Even if courts later intervene, the delay alone can corrode confidence. Self-government depends on the peaceful acceptance of verified outcomes. Undermine that faith, and the structure weakens. Across media consolidation, border enforcement, military brinksmanship, and election control, a pattern is emerging. Authority concentrates while transparency recedes. The health of a democracy is measured not by the power of its leaders, but by the resilience of its checks. When those checks falter, the burden shifts to citizens to demand the restoration. And that's the way it is Friday, February 27th, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann.
A fortress where the rich alone may stand. The price of fighting Trump is blood upon this land.
Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. What's on your mind? Paul in Tonasket, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's up?
3 quick things first. The claim that the inflation rate is down is valid. However, the cause seems to be that demand is also down. Number 2, we have 2 facts with Epstein, is that he was getting away with his stuff for a long time, and the government has kept strict hands off, and that makes me wonder if he had a connection into the CIA or some such.
Well, that's been publicly stated. In fact, apparently one of the reasons why, or at least one of the justifications that was used by Alex Acosta to throw out 50 plus child sex trafficking charges against him was because he was working with the CIA or with quote intelligence agencies. Yeah.
The third quick point is in Washington State, I can go online and fill my ballot out on my computer. Is that the same in Oregon?
No. No, you have to have, you get the physical ballot in the mail.
Okay, the real reason, well, yeah, what happens here is the ballot you got in the mail is canceled, and your printed out ballot is the one that's counted.
Right, but you still have to send
the reason I called is I've been playing around with AI, and I found two quick things with a couple of questions. One is that we know the greedy billionaires are destroying the economy. What do they expect to do about it? And originally I asked, it brought up information about the airy bunkers and the billionaire bunkers in general. A little later I asked the same thing, and that answer disappeared, and now you have to go digging for it. Number two, I asked the question, if we reinstated the 50% profits tax on corporations, what would happen? And I went through a whole long set of questions before we finally got down to reasonable answers. And in both cases, I asked why. In the first case, it said that the 3 billionaires that essentially control the AI market actually are manipulating the results to make them look better. And number two, in economics, all the information that it has was 1985 and after, with supply-side textbooks and supply-side theory, so you don't really get good information out of the AI on either subject.
All right. Well, this is the problem, Paul. Our traditional media is being captured by right-wing billionaires. In fact, Robert Reich was just pointing this out, and I think it was pretty shocking. He said the richest man owns X, the second and third richest men control Google, the fourth richest man owns Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, the fifth richest man owns the Washington Post, and now the sixth richest man is taking over Paramount and Warner Brothers, CNN, and CBS. So that information space is now occupied by right-wing billionaires aligned with the fascist movement, Trump's fascist movement. And as you correctly point out, the AI space, which is controlled by another group of right-wing billionaires, is moving rapidly to suck up to Trump. And it is downright scary. Paul, thanks for the call. Brad in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Hey, Brad, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, a few weeks ago on your show, I heard you say you're not a fan of Woodrow Wilson. Always thought he was a little progressive.
Oh, yes and no.
Can you explain why you don't like him?
Yeah, the main thing, my main objection to Woodrow Wilson, I mean, his idea for the League of Nations was a great idea. And that, of course, the Republicans shot it down. But he screened, Birth of a Nation was a recruiting film. It was the first full-length silent movie as a theater release in America. And he screened this at the White House. And it led to an explosion of activity among the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, it was an amazing recruiting thing for them, number one. And then number two, throughout the flu pandemic, he refused to acknowledge it. He never once mentioned it throughout his presidency. And yet, millions of people were dying all over the world. And there was this huge debate going on in the United States over whether people should wear masks or not. Now, I get it. He was a very smart guy. He had a PhD and all that kind of stuff. But those are a couple black marks in my mind, Brad. Why do you ask?
Gotcha. All right, thank you. I was just curious. Appreciate you clarifying. Right. Thank you.
Sure enough. Good talking to you. Samuel in Santa Ana, California. Hey, Samuel. Thanks for listening to KPFK. What's up?
Hey, Tom. Long time no hear.
Yeah. What's up?
Okay. Yeah, I must have missed the call. But anyway, moving on to more serious things. We live in a time of firsts. Reagan was the first divorced president. George Bush was the first sitting vice president since Martin Van Buren. Clinton and Gore were the first president and vice president since the Civil War to be elected from down south. Barack Obama, of course, the first black president. Kamala Harris, the first female president. Trump, everybody said that there was no way that he could be elected president because after January 6th, that would be impossible.
Oh, he's our first rapist president. He's our first felon president.
True. So, he is he is infamous.
Yeah, he's our first proud cheater on his wife president.
Yep. The first guy to have 2 immigrant wives.
Yeah.
Who dislikes immigrants, but that's a whole nother topic. So the thing I'm looking at right now is that, and I'm so glad I called in on this show because I didn't know what you were going to talk about. A lot of people are saying that he might try to make sure that he runs yet another time. If in fact he does, if in fact he lives, the medicine that he's taking, they have enough to prop him up so that he can talk and seem like he's making sense. As you said often, that Bernie is not going to run because of his age. However, if Trump runs as an octogenarian, then Bernie as an octogenarian could also run. And as we know from every single solitary time any polling has ever been done, Bernie is always above Trump. Bernie is the one guy who has proven that he can beat Trump.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying,
could have beaten him in 2016.
Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is that as wild as it sounds, I'm so glad I'm able to formulate this for you. As wild as it sounds, in this era of first, it is possible that Bernie could wind up being elected as the next president of the United States of America.
Yeah, I don't think there's a chance, Samuel. Number one, Bernie is, I believe, 3 years older than Trump. He's 81 or 82, and has made it very, very clear that he's not running for re-election in the Senate. He's not running for president. He's kind of coasting to the finish line here. And Trump is also, as you correctly point out, he's losing it. He's aging rapidly, and he's apparently taking Alzheimer's medication. And I don't think that there's any chance, even if Trump wanted to, that he's going to run for re-election. And in fact, of course, it's illegal too. But in fact, there's multiple reports that have come out of the White House that Trump is basically playing J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio against each other for who wants to be at the top of the Republican ticket.
I've heard the same things. However, you have to keep in mind, Bernie is saying what he's saying about not running because he is supposing that Trump is going to have only 2 terms. If we see a situation where that's not it, and it's either Bernie saves democracy or we have none, I will guarantee you that Bernie will step up to the plate.
Well, we'll see, Samuel. We'll see. Thanks a lot for the call. Maverick in Edmonds, Washington. Hey, Maverick, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Tom. I'm very averse to recommending media to people. Maybe it's a vestige from my Catholic upbringing and the guilt that was involved with that, and I feel like I'm holding people hostage. But I found a new guy on YouTube, and I hear he's on TikTok. I don't have social media, so I haven't seen him there. But this guy is an artist, and anybody who's an artist who's experienced someone with true talent, virtuosic talent, there's 2 things that happen. Either you want to throw your instrument or your craft out the window, or you're inspired to keep going. And this guy does both. I'm not being hyperbolic here, but his name is Robert Arnold. And there's a lot of Robert Arnolds out there. You can articulate the word defiance and the number 13 with Robert Arnold, and you'll find him. He has an insight to humanity, and he writes about our current state, and his insight reminds me of Khalil Gibran, the writer of The Prophet. I don't say that lightly. I cannot endorse everyone watching this guy enough. When I come across one of his videos, which are usually like 6 to 13 minutes long, I watch him 6 or 7 times back to back.
Whoa.
He's that good, Tom.
Okay.
He's an inspiration
Robert
to
Arnold,
anyone who writes, people like Kenyatta or Ziggy or you or others.
Yeah.
I believe he's going to be a
Maverick,
guest
what's
with
his name
Cliff
again?
Cash. Robert Arnold.
Okay,
He's
I got it.
Guy
I got it wrong.
maybe 30 years old. He's out.
Thank you. 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Defending America from the conservative weapons of mass deception. I'll be right back with you. And welcome back. Bill in Sun City, Arizona. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech.
Hi, Tom. Tom, I've always found that by owning up to my faults and mistakes, I became a better person. Now, when America needed to, in the first days of America, it became necessary to separate ourselves from a form of government. We're in another time in America when it's become necessary to do something formally. And I'm proposing that we institute a declaration of remediation and reclamation, where, like in the Constitution, we admit to our faults and the usurpations of our government. Formally. Just like the Declaration.
Yeah. Or like South Africa
we
did.
Do some. Really. But we have to do it. We have to do it on a noticeable front, formally. I mean, I can't find a better word. But our founders did it. They addressed the usurpations of the king. And they did it eloquently and marvelously. And we can certainly do it again. I know that we have to wait till a time when the progressives achieve a majority. And I honestly believe that'll happen. Donald Trump has shown us what bad looks like. We're good with it now. But thank you for your time, Tom. That's all I got to say. Anything you got to say.
You said it real well, Bill. Thank you very much for the call. Keno in Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Keno, happy Fria's Day.
Yes, happy Fria's Day. May her love spread across this nation. I got a suggestion and a request. A suggestion is that Democrats and liberals start talking about Trump worship syndrome. Republicans have a syndrome name for people that are against Trump. We need to start talking to these people that have a pathological mindset. They have blind faith. They support a convicted criminal and become sycophants. So Trump worship syndrome, maybe some other name, but someday there will be a book written about that. Mass hypnosis has affected so many people in this nation, and let's put a name on it and talk about it and study it so we can avoid it in the future. The other thing is I want to make a request to your viewers to join me in lobbying the Democratic Party, Ken Martin, to recruit you to start making messages for the coming election. Now, I sent a letter to Senator Elizabeth Warren, and I recruited her to join me in getting you to be the crafter of messages. And also, I hope it's okay, I mentioned that certain liberal congresspeople come on your show, and maybe she might come on your show sometime. I hope that was okay.
She's been on the program before.
Oh, she has. Okay, yeah. Good. But anyway, I sent her a letter, and I asked her to join in. But also, I sent her a copy of the letter that I sent to J.D. Vance, asking him to clarify this absolute immunity statement he made. We need to get him to clarify that so we know his tendency. Either he can clarify that he misspoke, or we know what his
J.D.
true
Vance
nature
is a proud fascist, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah.
he's in it with these fascist billionaires who say that democracy is incompatible with freedom. That was Peter Thiel's thing, or that he
has Trump.
went downhill
He has
when
Trump
women started
worship
voting.
syndrome.
Yeah, Trump worship syndrome. I'm with you. Okay, Keno, thank you. Great to hear from you, and happy weekend. We'll be right back with more of your calls. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So have you noticed that the Republicans are pretty much not talking about a constitutional convention anymore? They used to be gung-ho to rewrite the Constitution. They wanted to put corporate personhood in there. They wanted to change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. I mean, they're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, their ultimate talking document, does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. I mean, they have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the 1st, 4th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out. 9 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. Eric in Charleston, South Carolina. Hey, Eric, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I was calling because a lot of people be giving Biden and his Attorney General a lot of slack about why they didn't bring that case to with Epstein up to trial.
Merrick Garland,
think about it. Think about it. Had they brought it up to trial, then Trump would have got over like a fat rat because he already had got the public convinced that anything come out of the news media from the Democratic Party was fake news. So anything that they would have showed, he would have said it was fake news, and that it wasn't true, and that it was fabricated, and those poor women would have never got their day in court.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether dumb luck or that the Attorney General and Biden just decided not to deal with it and let it fall under the next administration.
Well, if you do if you ask one of the AI things out there, or do a web search on why did the Biden administration not go after Jeffrey Epstein, you get an answer that they explicitly said they're not doing it because there was an ongoing investigation, because they wanted to protect the victims, because they thought that the FBI was still dealing with it, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if those are reasonable justifications or not, frankly, Eric.
That's the answer that they give.
I know.
But I feel the real one was that they didn't want to deal with it because they understood that if they did deal with it, Trump would have got over like a fat rat, and the cases would have never been solved for those young ladies.
That's interesting. I think they could have used it to take down Trump. I mean, they should have seen him coming as a political opportunist or as a political problem.
I think he would have got over like a fat rat. I think had they brought that case to the trial, he would have played it off as fake news and that they fabricated all that.
I got it,
all
Eric.
that information against him.
And a fat rat. I mean, what a perfect description for Donald Trump. Eric, thank you for the call. Thanks for listening to us on Sirius XM there in South Carolina. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry, what's up?
Hey, regarding your last caller, again, the FBI was in control of the Republicans throughout this entire time.
Yeah.
It only started going after Epstein when Epstein threatened to take Trump down.
That's true.
Soon after that, pardon?
That's true, and that's when they arrested him, threw him in prison, and killed him.
And killed him. Somebody killed him. Yes. Yep. So if you want to know why the Democratic presidents didn't do it, is because presidents normally don't go after individual criminals like that.
Mm.
And that is, but when it became a threat to Donald Trump, Epstein was dead.
Yep. I agree.
Now,
I agree. And his brother, by the way, is out there saying, we've got the autopsy. He was strangled. He wasn't, he didn't hang himself.
And I also wanted to touch on something that I had said last week. I had predicted that the Fed would cause the stock market to go back to 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at indicators that tell me that the markets are still rigged. And after I made that comment last Friday, the indicators that I look at stopped. It appeared that the Fed just stopped trying to manipulate the markets. And so I found that to be interesting. And then it never did get back up to 50,000. In fact, it's falling today. Mm-hmm. And it still appears that those indicators that I look at, the Fed is no longer trying to manipulate the markets.
Yeah, I think they realize that we've hit a moment of reckoning. We are in a recession from everything that I can see. And of course, it typically takes a while for that to be acknowledged by the official numbers.
Yeah, and again, the market went up for Donald Trump in his first year almost as high as it went up for Joe Biden in his last year. Joe Biden saw over 1 million jobs created. Donald Trump saw under 200,000 jobs created.
Right, 180.
So that capitalism isn't working right now, but fascism is working.
Mm-hmm.
And I when I found out that Harold was the guy that was arrested for trying to manipulate the markets with China, I found out that he was acquitted on the 3rd of February.
Mm-hmm.
None of the major news reports that I could find was aware of that, but X was. They posted it a day after or around.
Who was acquitted?
see, Harold Rogers, the guy who was arrested by the FBI for colluding with the Chinese regarding our market.
Oh.
And he was paid $450,000. They gave him his money. They didn't keep the money. But he also was found guilty of lying to the investigators.
Interesting.
And what I was posing to a AI engine is that the Trump administration will likely swallow this guy up because he knows how to manipulate the markets. And I was doing that over the weekend, and my computer crashed. It didn't just crash; the screen went blank, and it wouldn't come back on for a day.
Welcome to the wonderful world, eh, Larry? Larry, great talking with you as always. Thank you for the call and happy weekend. We're hitting the top of the hour here. We'll be back on the other side. Donald Trump is proposing to lower your Affordable Care Act bills, but there's a catch. I'll tell you all about that in just a minute.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Good day. America is in the grip of something larger than a partisan clash. What we're witnessing is a steady consolidation of power over the institutions that sustain self-government. The courts, the ballot, the border, the press. Each story tonight stands on its own, but taken together, they sketch a portrait of a republic under strain. First, the media. Netflix has abandoned its $83 billion bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. That clears the path for Paramount Skydance to take control, potentially placing CNN and CBS News under the same corporate roof. Journalists inside both organizations are sounding alarms. The concern is not simply downsizing, it is direction. David Ellison has acknowledged conversations with Donald Trump that included CNN. His father, Larry Ellison, the largest shareholder in Paramount Skydance, reportedly discussed removing anchors who have drawn Trump's anger. At CBS, Barry Weiss was installed as editor-in-chief last fall, and amid regulatory pressure from Trump-aligned officials, despite lacking any television experience whatsoever. Press freedom advocates warn that corporate consolidation paired with political access can dull the edge of independent reporting. The deal still faces antitrust review, yet the trajectory is clear. When news organizations become assets in the portfolios of billionaires with political interests, journalism risks becoming negotiation instead of investigation. In Buffalo, New York, a Rohingya refugee named Nurul Amin Shah Alam was dropped off by Border Patrol agents at what officials described as a warm and safe location near his last known address. Alam was nearly blind, walked with a stick, and spoke little English. 5 days later, he was found dead. Surveillance footage later revealed that the Tim Hortons where he was left was closed. He stood alone in the freezing parking lot in below freezing temperatures for more than an hour after the store shut. Agents did not contact his family or his lawyer. Even after the video emerged, the Department of Homeland Security continued to describe the location as warm and safe, a lie. Local officials have called the death preventable and disturbing. The larger issue is not only negligence, it's whether truth still constrains power. When official statements persist in defiance of documented evidence, public trust collapses. Democracies rely on accountability, and without it, cruelty becomes administrative routine. Overseas, the United States may be approaching direct military action against Iran. The State Department has ordered non-essential personnel and their families out of Israel. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sent a message shortly after midnight urging staff to book flights immediately. American citizens were advised to consider departing while commercial options remain. Diplomatic talks in Geneva ended without resolution. No joint statements followed. 2 carrier strike groups are positioned in the region. Oman's foreign minister rushed to Washington to press for more time. Vice President Vance has said that there's no chance the United States will be drawn into years of war. It also acknowledged uncertainty about whether Trump will authorize a strike. The next round of talks is scheduled in Vienna, though. Whether it occurs is uncertain. Constitutional balance here is at stake. The authority to declare war rests exclusively with Congress. When momentum builds through executive channels without sustained public debate, we the people are distanced from the gravest decision a nation can make. At home, scrutiny has turned toward the machinery of voting itself. The FBI recently raided the Fulton County Elections Office using a debunked affidavit. Tulsi Gabbard was present. She had earlier overseen the seizure of voting equipment in Puerto Rico, despite the territory's transition to paper ballots. Donald Trump has publicly called for nationalizing elections in multiple jurisdictions. The legal pathway traces back to Executive Order 13848, originally crafted to sanction foreign election interference. Amendments permit property to be blocked during active investigations without conclusive proof. Critics warn that voting machines could be seized and evidence classified, leaving states unable to certify their own results in a timely manner. Even if courts later intervene, the delay alone can corrode confidence. Self-government depends on the peaceful acceptance of verified outcomes. Undermine that faith, and the structure weakens. Across media consolidation, border enforcement, military brinksmanship, and election control, a pattern is emerging. Authority concentrates while transparency recedes. The health of a democracy is measured not by the power of its leaders, but by the resilience of its checks. When those checks falter, the burden shifts to citizens to demand the restoration. And that's the way it is Friday, February 27th, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? You know, at the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interests or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, you know, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, you know, like tech is positive and bros, you know, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome back. It's the second hour of our program. Donald Trump has a great plan, or the Republicans, I guess. Republicans have been pitching this forever, frankly. I mean, this was something that George W. Bush was talking about. And that is that the Affordable Care Act, now, George W. Bush wasn't talking about it for the Affordable Care Act, but just, this whole idea that people should just insure themselves. And, if you've got big expenses, you should just pay them. I mean, it makes a certain amount of sense, if like George W. Bush, you're born into basically a billionaire family or something close to it. Or if like Donald Trump, you are a billionaire, you were born into a billionaire family. It makes sense if you're a billionaire who funds right-wing think tanks, like Heritage and Cato and et cetera. But the Trump administration, we've got this Affordable Care Act, which is the closest we have to a national health insurance program in the United States. Of course, it's run by for-profit companies to the benefit of for-profit companies to the tune of billions and billions of dollars in profit every year and millions of dollars in executive compensation. Those are the problems with it. And that's why the Heritage Foundation came up with this back in the 1980s as their suggestion for a national health care program for America. The Obamacare was the Heritage Foundation, was the Republican health care plan, was put into place in Massachusetts by Mitt Romney, Republican governor of Massachusetts at the time, as a health care plan. So anyhow, we've got this thing, and so the Trump administration says, well, let's fix it. Everybody's complaining about how high the premiums are. Let's offer plans that have low premiums. Now, these plans have always been around. They're called emergency plans, and up until recently, you could only sell them for 3 months at a time, like a bridge. You lose your job, you lose your health insurance, you've got 3 months to get real health insurance. You can buy one of these so-called emergency plans. They're cheap because, you're unemployed now, right? You're looking for work. They're cheap, but they have massively high deductibles, $31,000 a year. So, I mean, what, you're going to pay $500 a month or whatever. I mean, it's that's the low range for health insurance, the extreme low range. So you're going to pay a couple $100 a month for so-called emergency care. And then when you get sick, you get in a car accident, you get, COVID and it becomes pneumonia and you end up in the hospital, whatever. And you get a $10,000, $15,000 hospital bill, $20,000 hospital bill, $25,000 hospital, $30,000 hospital bill. You have to pay the whole thing. And if you can't, you get to declare bankruptcy and lose your home, as happens to 500,000 Americans every year. So this is their new plan. This is today's New York Times by Reed Abelson. The headline, new ACA plans could increase family deductibles to $31,000. And they're trying to do this, normally you'd think that this would require Congress to act, but no. They're doing it because, the ACA has been enacted by Congress. It's administered by the executive branch, by the Trump administration. And so Mehmet Oz is out here, Dr. Oz, the guy who hustles vitamins and stuff on television. He's now the director of our Medicare. I know it's somewhere between absurd and obscene, right? So anyhow, this professional hustler and scam artist is now the head of Medicare, and he says the goal is simple: more choice. Right? Yeah, you can choose a plan where you have to pay $31,000 if you get sick. They note that more than 1 million people have dropped out of Obamacare so far this year because the Republicans gutted the what do they call that? The assistance for that program. The enhanced subsidies, they were called, that expired at the end of last year. So monthly premiums doubled, and in some cases tripled for people. And, it was news for a little while, and then it happened, and then they just kind of moved on. So Dr. Oz's new proposal would allow one of these health plans to raise the annual deductible to more than $15,000 for an individual or $31,000 for a family. The proposal involves a type of plan known as catastrophic or skinny policies. Just what we need, right? They also note, and again, this is the New York Times, the proposed ACA rules would make it harder for people to enroll, redefine which benefits, like adult dental care, would no longer be considered an essential benefit if you have an emergency or just a real problem. It could also erode other consumer protections, writes the Times, This administration's proposals could also usher in other plans that could lead to severely restricted access to doctors and hospitals. Some people would be left without a dedicated network of sources for medical services, forcing them to search on their own for care and risk sizable bills. Now, Republicans have always been in favor of something like this because they say when you're responsible for paying the bill, you're more likely to shop around, right? You're more likely to behave responsibly. Yes, I'm having a heart attack. Please give me a list of the 5 hospitals and 30 doctors in the area who could deal with it, and I want their prices right now before I, these people are nuts. They're just nuts. Also, this Columbia student was just released by ICE after Zohran Mamdani, the mayor of New York City, met with Donald Trump yesterday at the White House. This is interesting. The drama unfolded at 6 o'clock yesterday morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 plainclothes ICE officers who did not identify themselves as ICE officers. They were in plain clothes, they had badges, and they said that they were New York City police and that they were looking for a missing 5-year-old. And they had the picture of the missing 5-year-old. And they wanted to get inside a particular apartment. They believed that there was information there that would be useful for finding this 5-year-old. And so the superintendent of the housing complex, which is owned by Columbia University, this is for university housing, the superintendent of the building let them in because he believed what they were saying, that they were New York City police and they were here looking for a missing 5-year-old, which is, not an unreasonable thing. And in the apartment, they found Ellie Agayeva, 29 years old. She's a student. She's studying neuroscience and political science. She's a senior at Columbia. The supervisor, at that point, they said, oh, no, we're not actually looking for a 5-year-old. We lied to get into the building. We're here to take her away because her visa has expired. And so he said, I have to call my boss before I can let you take them away? And they were like, no, we're not going to let you do anything. We're just going to haul her off. And they did. Kathy Hochul, the Democratic governor of New York State, said no one should disappear at the hands of the government. No student should be taken from their dorm through deception. These incidents demand an independent investigation and real accountability. New York will not look the other way. Well, tough talk, Governor Hochul. Let's see some action. I want to see the state of New York open an investigation into ICE. I want to see the Attorney General of the state of New York bringing charges against these ICE officers, because this is obscene. And you shouldn't have to have the mayor of a city go to Washington, D.C. and get down on bended knee and beg the President of the United States to do what's legal, to follow the damn law. I mean, we got this situation now where you've got to go to Emperor Palpatine or whatever his name is and say, please, please release this person. I mean, this is how kingdoms operate. It's not how democracies operate. So let's do something about this. Let's New York, Governor Hochul, start taking names and kicking ass. You have the power. Letitia James, go after these guys. 15 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with your calls in just a minute. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Bill Clinton is testifying before the House Oversight Committee about Jeffrey Epstein. I want to see Melania testify. I mean, she was Epstein's girlfriend before she was Trump's. And welcome back. Hang on just a second here. There we go. Michelle in Van Nuys, California. Hey, Michelle, what's on your mind today?
I have another reason for you to not like Woodrow Wilson.
Okay. Thank you.
During World War I, he created an independent agency called the Agency I'm sorry, I just blanked on it. The Bureau of Information, and it basically was a propaganda arm to completely control all the information that was coming out about World War I. We didn't have radio at the time or any public things. Newspapers were way after the fact, so people basically got their news by going to the theaters, and the Minutemen would give news briefs, and there would be newsreels. So every bit of information that was released about World War I had to go through this particular office and be approved by the head of the department in order to get released to the public so that they became influenced for World War I. So it was completely to control the narrative about what was going on in the war.
So he was censoring the news?
Yeah. Basically, every single thing about World War I had to be run through this particular office and then either approved or not approved by the head of the department and to be released or not. So information coming out and maybe some newspapers way after the fact might have somebody report something, but basically anything that was getting out to the public regarding World War I had to go through this particular office.
Wow.
They completely controlled the narrative.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Woodrow was, some argued that Woodrow Wilson would have been fine with fascism. He was also an advocate of eugenics, of selective breeding of humans, In fact, his eugenics campaign was adopted by multiple states and then was adopted by Adolf Hitler.
Hitler and that's the same as this
Hitler used Woodrow Wilson's posters about eugenics. So, yeah, I'm with you. Michelle, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. That was a good one. I appreciate it. Vince in Wellsville, Kansas. Hey, Vince, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Gosh, I got a lot of things on my mind. Lately, I've been thinking about representative government. Representative government, we all know that that's at the heart of a successful democracy. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the leadership of that democracy, you have to look at where do they get their supporters and who do they support? We have the silent majority, the New Dealers, Johnson's Great Society, True Believers, and now we've got the MAGAites. But I don't think those are the people that he really represents. I think he represents a group that I've seen in photographs and been at his gatherings. And that group, all I could think to call them would be the United Snakes of America.
Yeah, Trump represents Elon Musk with his hand up in a Hitler salute. That's who he represents.
Yeah, the United Snakes of America.
The United Snakes of America. I love it. Vince, thank you. That was a good one. It's 19 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 1 minute. Pick up your calls. Stay with us. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. When Ronald Reagan took over America in 1981, we handed him a brand gleaming new country. Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, Jack Kennedy, they had built America. We had brand new schools, brand new hospitals, brand new interstate highway systems, brand new airports, infrastructure. We were the envy of the world. And then Republicans came along and they said, well, you just cut the top tax rate from 74% down to 27% and everything will trickle down. Instead, what do we get? Billionaires and poverty. They said, hey, just deregulate guns and an armed society is a polite society. Instead, we've got more school shootings than anywhere in the world. They said, just kill off civics and history classes in our schools and liberate our young people to focus on science and math. And now we've got people who don't know how our government works. I mean, it just goes on from there. There's a whole rant about it over at HartmannReport.com titled FDR Saved America, Then the GOP Ripped Us Apart. Check it out. Welcome back. 21 minutes past the hour. President Bill Clinton, or former President Bill Clinton, just issued an opening statement to the folks at the House Oversight Committee's, where he's giving testimony today in Chappaqua. He says there's a bunch of little, talk about how democracy requires every person to play their part, blah, blah, blah. And he says, the second reason I'm here is that the girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not only justice but healing. They've been waiting too long for both. Though my brief with Epstein ended years before his crimes came to light, and though I never witnessed during our limited interactions any indication of what was truly going on, I'm here to offer what little I know so it might prevent anything like this from ever happening again. He says, before I start, I have to get personal. You made Hillary come in. She had nothing to do with Epstein, nothing. She has no memory of even meeting him. She neither traveled with him nor visited any of his properties. Whether you subpoenaed 10 people or 10,000, including her, was simply not right. And he talks about how he took an oath to tell the truth and that they should too, these Republicans on this committee. And he said, first, I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. No matter how many photos you show me, I have two things that at the end of the day matter more than your interpretation of those 20-year-old photos. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. I know what I did, more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong. As someone who grew up in a home with domestic abuse, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes, not sweetheart deals. So, there you go. I think that's the essence of what Clinton's going to testify to, and I suspect it's absolutely right that he's telling the truth. So what's on your mind today? Jessica in York, Maine. Hey, Jessica, what's up?
Well, two quick things. Number one, I know we keep hearing about the SAVE Act, and the one state where it's really not going to be a problem is the blue state of Hawaii, because until 2019, I had friends who were married there. Your name was legally changed, and they mailed you your new driver's license once they got the sealed marriage certificate. Your name was legally changed.
Well, that's interesting.
So before 2019, but marriage equality came about, and it had to percolate through the courts, and then the law changed. So anybody who was married before April of 2019 in Hawaii, your name was automatically changed. But here's the thing, looking at, and we were trying to figure out why on earth Tulsi Gabbard was in Fulton County for the raid on the election stuff. Had nothing to do with 2020. She was there on the 17th. On the 20th, well, backtrack, 2 weeks earlier on the 3rd, there was a raid by the French police forces into Elon Musk's offices for things about election interference. She was there, DNI, she knows about what's happening. They were there not because they wanted the 2020 stuff. On the 20th of the month, we find out that there had been pre-marked ballots mailed out in Georgia. I'm not a conspiracy theory.
I thought that was in Texas, that Elon Musk broke the law and sent out pre-marked ballots.
Okay, I thought that they also had. I thought I'd heard that they did in Georgia too, but maybe I'm wrong.
I believe it was just Texas, but I could be wrong too, Jessica.
I don't think they were there for the 2020 stuff. I think they were there for the 2024 stuff.
Interesting.
One way or another.
Yeah.
Even if it's only the pre-marked ballots in Texas, I could be wrong. I admit to being wrong more often than not. But seriously, I think that they were more interested in finding, granted, the voter records, which they're trying to get out of every state, my Secretary of State.
No, it's fairly clear that Elon Musk broke campaign finance law by mailing out these things. And he's not even going to get a slap on the wrist because he's Elon Musk. He's in tight with Trump. And we no longer live in a democracy. We live in a kingdom, or a neo-kingdom.
I think they were looking more for 2024 stuff than they were 2020.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all about 2026 and 2028. So, I'm with you. Jessica, I got to move along, but thank you for the call, and thanks for listening to us there in Maine. Sean in Britain, South Dakota. Hey, Sean, what's on your mind today?
Well, this is a coincidence because I was calling about the same thing Jessica just talked about. I've only heard the one story about it, and the story I heard was Georgia, that the ballots, that Elon Musk had broken the law. And I've not gotten any real clear clarification on it. I've only heard the one story, and I don't know why the press isn't talking about it, because it's kind of a bombshell, if you ask me.
It was all over social media for a couple of days. But I will look this up during the break and see if I can track down any more details.
Yeah, I would really like clarification on that. And I'd like to know, if this happened in one state, why aren't we investigating all of the swing states? The Democrats, I know they've got a lot to do, but this is one thing that they really should zero in on. Yes. And then I had a comment about another caller talking about Jeffrey Epstein's murder and how the FBI only went after Epstein when Trump was involved. And I think we're looking at the wrong thing. I think we need to look at the global banking system. I think that's where the real
interesting.
That's where the real crimes are being committed.
It was just weeks before Epstein was arrested. He had told several people, apparently on the record, or they've gone on the record, that he had information that could take down Trump. But, this was while Trump was still president, so who knows? Sean, thank you. Thanks for the call. Great to hear from you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's your media support group for We the People. I'll be right back with your calls in just a minute. Good day. America is in the grip of something larger than a partisan clash. What we're witnessing is a steady consolidation of power over the institutions that sustain self-government. The courts, the ballot, the border, the press. Each story tonight stands on its own, but taken together, they sketch a portrait of a republic under strain. First, the media. Netflix has abandoned its $83 billion bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. That clears the path for Paramount Skydance to take control, potentially placing CNN and CBS News under the same corporate roof. Journalists inside both organizations are sounding alarms. The concern is not simply downsizing, it is direction. David Ellison has acknowledged conversations with Donald Trump that included CNN. His father, Larry Ellison, the largest shareholder in Paramount Skydance, reportedly discussed removing anchors who have drawn Trump's anger. At CBS, Barry Weiss was installed as editor-in-chief last fall, and amid regulatory pressure from Trump-aligned officials, despite lacking any television experience whatsoever. Press freedom advocates warn that corporate consolidation paired with political access can dull the edge of independent reporting. The deal still faces antitrust review, yet the trajectory is clear. When news organizations become assets in the portfolios of billionaires with political interests, journalism risks becoming negotiation instead of investigation. In Buffalo, New York, a Rohingya refugee named Nurul Amin Shah Alam was dropped off by Border Patrol agents at what officials described as a warm and safe location near his last known address. Alam was nearly blind, walked with a stick, and spoke little English. 5 days later, he was found dead. Surveillance footage later revealed that the Tim Hortons where he was left was closed. He stood alone in the freezing parking lot in below freezing temperatures for more than an hour after the store shut. Agents did not contact his family or his lawyer. Even after the video emerged, the Department of Homeland Security continued to describe the location as warm and safe, a lie. Local officials have called the death preventable and disturbing. The larger issue is not only negligence, it's whether truth still constrains power. When official statements persist in defiance of documented evidence, public trust collapses. Democracies rely on accountability, and without it, cruelty becomes administrative routine. Overseas, the United States may be approaching direct military action against Iran. The State Department has ordered non-essential personnel and their families out of Israel. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sent a message shortly after midnight urging staff to book flights immediately. American citizens were advised to consider departing while commercial options remain. Diplomatic talks in Geneva ended without resolution. No joint statements followed. 2 carrier strike groups are positioned in the region. Oman's foreign minister rushed to Washington to press for more time. Vice President Vance has said that there's no chance the United States will be drawn into years of war. It also acknowledged uncertainty about whether Trump will authorize a strike. The next round of talks is scheduled in Vienna, though. Whether it occurs is uncertain. Constitutional balance here is at stake. The authority to declare war rests exclusively with Congress. When momentum builds through executive channels without sustained public debate, we the people are distanced from the gravest decision a nation can make. At home, scrutiny has turned toward the machinery of voting itself. The FBI recently raided the Fulton County Elections Office using a debunked affidavit. Tulsi Gabbard was present. She had earlier overseen the seizure of voting equipment in Puerto Rico, despite the territory's transition to paper ballots. Donald Trump has publicly called for nationalizing elections in multiple jurisdictions. The legal pathway traces back to Executive Order 13848, originally crafted to sanction foreign election interference. Amendments permit property to be blocked during active investigations without conclusive proof. Critics warn that voting machines could be seized and evidence classified, leaving states unable to certify their own results in a timely manner. Even if courts later intervene, the delay alone can corrode confidence. Self-government depends on the peaceful acceptance of verified outcomes. Undermine that faith, and the structure weakens. Across media consolidation, border enforcement, military brinksmanship, and election control, a pattern is emerging. Authority concentrates while transparency recedes. The health of a democracy is measured not by the power of its leaders, but by the resilience of its checks. When those checks falter, the burden shifts to citizens to demand the restoration. And that's the way it is Friday, February 27th, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann.
So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? You know, at the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, you know, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, you know, like tech is positive and bros, you know, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
Picking up your calls here. Mike in Concrete, Washington. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Thank you.
I got 2 comments for your listeners. And you brought up a little while back on a
Mike, if I could pause you for just a second. I looked this up during the break, and it was Georgia where Elon Musk sent out pre-filled out applications for mail-in ballots, applications for absentee ballots. It wasn't actual ballots, it was the applications. I just wanted to clean that up from the previous 2 phone calls. Sorry, Mike, back to you.
Oh, you're good. I just wanted to bring up to your listeners, because they're the smartest listeners, and I just wanted to say, I got 2 of them. The first one is this: you brought up stingers earlier, a back channel on, gathering information on
You mean
people.
the Stingray machines that pretend to be a cell tower and steal all this data off your phone?
Yeah.
That ICE is using now?
Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to bring it up that it all started in Epstein's group way back in the beginning, where Epstein and his crew made a back channel for the internet for the government called Promise. And that's probably where he got a lot of dirt on people, because that's what he was part of, and so was Ghislaine. I wish people could look that up and actually verify all those things. I know I did years ago, and I just find it amazing how people don't get that. And then the second one is, everybody talks about the Trump Towers in Moscow. And I know that there's Trump Towers in Crocus City, which is right over the river from Moscow. And that's where they have an Ivanka sauna and all these things in there. So to me, those things have always been there, and the media missed the,
Well, that's interesting.
screwed the pitch in the beginning.
I had no idea. Mike, I'll have to do some research. Thank you for the tip on that. Appreciate the call. David in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I was going to give you, I've got something existential and something revelational.
Okay.
And I'm going to start this with a quote from Plato: "Ignorance, the root and stem of every evil." And the second one: "The price that good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men."
Oh, I love it.
Now,
those are both from Plato.
My existential is, are these in the reincarnated souls of like Pol Pot and Torquemada and the Spanish Inquisition and the witch hunters and Himmler and Goebbels? And are these the people? Have they come back and we're dealing with the same souls again? Or are there evil spirits? Are these that say the babies are born innocent and then get infected with possessed by the spirit of avarice and greed and all of that? Where are the aliens that are taking over our minds to, like this show, terraform the earth so that they can have the planet to their liking?
Yeah.
The Urantia book says the earth is the imprisonment of all the insane souls in the universe, and we're the insane asylum of the universe.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. Although I have the book, I know what you're talking about. But my sense of it, David, is that what we're dealing with right now are really just damaged people. And that history has always been filled with damaged people rising to positions of power and inflicting their damage on others. I don't think you need to go metaphysical to explain this.
Well, I just thought I'd throw that out. Now, a revelation I had, and this has to do with, I keep getting constant calls about selling my house. And the whole thing, I'm thinking back to Hamilton and Barr and the whole idea that to be a citizen, to be able to vote, you had to be a propertied man. You couldn't just have, you couldn't
Well, there was a
be,
debate about that at the Constitutional Convention, and they rejected it.
Right. But I have a feeling with, you can start considering how they're wholesale buying everybody's houses. They're not building. So somebody like me, 70, it's like, well, where am I going to move to? Yeah, I can sell the house. Where do I go?
Right.
Is the whole thing is like, okay, well, then I won't have property. So now all of a sudden they pull out this, because when they got rid of the ability to have abortion, they pulled out some obscure 1600 witch hunter law. Why not just say, okay, well, you have to have own property?
There have been a number of Republicans over the last couple of years, maybe the last decade, who have actually proposed this publicly. I've quoted them on this program over and over and over again. None of them were serious, legislative proposals. They were all just, Republicans muttering and complaining and, doing the
right. But that's how we got this That's how we got this consolidation of media.
Yeah.
That's how we've gotten the consolidation of the airwaves. That's how we've gotten a cabal of only 3 telephone companies. Just try to buy a phone without Google.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it, David. Well said. Thank you very much. Robert in Los Angeles. Hey, Robert, what's up?
Hey, all glory to God and His Son Christ. I have 2 points that I'd like to bring up. One of your previous callers had said that we were just shooting innocent people out of the water. My brother worked for the Signal Corps in Bosnia. And, there's these things called satellites. They're not just picking innocent people off. They know who they're hitting. And again, I pose this question to you and also Kerry Harrison. How many of the founding fathers said democracy would lead to tyranny? Have a great day.
I don't know. I don't know of any founding fathers who said that democracy could lead to tyranny. Robert, by the way, I'm having a hard time understanding you. Your voice is badly muffled. I don't know if you're using Bluetooth or something, but just FYI. Robert, thanks for the call. Robin in Kingston, Washington. Hey, Robin, what's up?
Tom, I want to reinforce one of the things that you had said this morning, but put it into a bigger plane. Mm-hmm. After watching Trump for these 10 years or so, or however many, I believe that everything that he is doing right now is a function of 2 things. One is not what I want to really talk about. That's profiteering and grift. That's clear. That's his main. Mm-hmm. But number 2 is keeping the left very, very busy, at kind of chasing our tails and doing this and doing that and Epstein and everything, to forget about the work that we have to do for voting. That means not only getting out the vote and stuff like that, but for citizens committees to start to, kind of follow Greg Palast's lead and start to look into the flaws that we may or may not have all across the country. Mm-hmm. And that's a really state-by-state, regional, local thing. So, when I hear all the hysteria from Trump and all of this stuff that's going on, I just am sitting there saying they are keeping our eyes away from the prize. Yeah. And, things that we can do for voting and whatever it might be, I support the person that said the concept of mail at home. Mm-hmm. I am promulgating an idea of having drop boxes in every high school across America.
That's a great
idea. And we could do some work at working on the fact that 63% of white women voted for Trump 3 times, Tom. So we have work to do. Let's get
we've got a lot of
undistracted.
Work to do. I'm with you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Well said. On the other side of the break, we're going to speak briefly with an author that I think you'll find fascinating. So stick around. It's 44 and a half minutes past the hour. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's the place where despair is not an option. Stick around. And welcome back. Lori in Ocala, Florida. Hey, Lori, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Kind of thought about what you said about Trump putting out an APB for all Americans that are in Israel.
That's pretty radical.
Catch the last plane if you can, while you can. And I think this was a break glass moment. I think this is a calling for all of our representatives, the Congress, the Senate, I don't care if they're Republicans too, but all Democrats need to get to Washington and need to be up in arms over this as if it's really going to happen, because guess what? Even if it doesn't happen, it'll be a dry run for when it does happen. Mm-hmm. And this is good enough cause in my mind. I mean, we're threatening war, and how do we know that? Because we're evacuating Americans from one of our closest allies. And I just think that Trump is kind of a cornered rat now, speaking of the fat rat. And I think that he is going to do anything, and he's warning us, not really us, because he's playing Bill Clinton and Hillary, and, you know, he's doing his little mechanisms that trigger Dems, but he is starting a war, and he thinks he can do it behind our backs on a weekend. Yeah. And I think that shame on us if we sleep through this.
Yeah, I agree, Lori. And I think that also he's looking for an emergency. He's looking for something that he can use to declare a state of emergency for the election. And you know, having Iran pull off something like 9/11 is exactly what he's going to want. So I'm very concerned about it. Lori, thank you. You excellent point and well made. Appreciate the call. Lee in Duval, Washington. Hey, Lee, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how are you doing?
Good. What's up?
You can hear me okay, all right?
I can, yeah.
Tom, you do a wonderful job. I've been listening to you since you came on in Seattle, educating people. You get a lot of calls of people congratulate you for educating and informing people on all these issues.
But
I'm suggesting that you allow your listeners to pay you back. And I would suggest you set aside a half hour on each show or some frequency, once, 2 times or 3 times a week, that makes sense to you, and allow your listeners to help you and each other delve into why Democrats can't easily defeat these wicked, power-hungry dimwits. They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible, and should be easily handling them.
I think the answer to that question, Lee, is real simple. It's called conservative media. You've got you know, millions, tens of millions of Americans who get all of their information from a very, very small bundle of right-wing media.
Tom, I know that. We all know that. I don't want to interrupt you, but I know how this goes. I don't want to lose my time here. So the suggestion is set a half hour aside each week or each day, just a half hour. That gives you 2.5 hours to do the wonderful things you do, and take calls. And these calls should be directed at your listeners should ask you, what is it that the Democratic Party could do to shoot themselves in the foot as we move toward the midterms? We don't want to do that. We kind of got by surprise with that last election.
They will figure it out.
So we know what's coming. Yeah, and let that vast audience of yours.
Thanks for the suggestion, Lee. I appreciate it. 48 minutes past the hour. We'll be back in just a minute. Stay tuned. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So Richard Nixon was a crook, but not a lot of Americans knew that in 1960. But he lost to John Kennedy, not because he was a crook, but because he didn't know how to use television. He refused to wear makeup during the debates. Jack Kennedy understood television, and it was why he was so, widely popular. Calvin Coolidge was the first president to use radio in 1923, but Franklin Roosevelt did his fireside chats starting in 1933, just after he was inaugurated, and they were often listened to by a third of Americans. That's why he got reelected 3 times. He was elected 4 times to president. If Joe Biden had done the same thing during his 4 years, reaching all the American people every week, using social media, the new media, because that was radio and television back in the day, he would be in the White House right now, or Kamala Harris. There's a whole article about this, how Democrats need to get with the plan. They need to figure out how to use social media and get some charismatic candidates out there. Over at HartmannReport.com is titled Democrats' Fatal Flaw. Check it out. And welcome back. On the line with us is Professor Martin Halbert, PhD, Emory University, an information scientist, served as the National Science Foundation Science Advisor for Public Access in the Biden administration, previously helped develop the largest research database on the transatlantic slave trade. He's presently a tenured professor and the author of a series of science fiction novels, the Sojourner Saga. There's a wiki about them. Sojourner.eposian.com, as well as they're available, I believe, on Amazon. Do I have that right, Martin?
Correct.
So what provoked this? What led you from this academic life to writing science fiction, and how do these novels give us clues about how to fight tyranny?
Yeah. So why interview a science fiction writer on a progressive talk show? What's science fiction relevant to resisting oppression? And what do I want to tell you about these two books of mine, Helmsman and Pilgrim? Well, I think science fiction has always been a literature of understanding the present through a lens of hope for the future and seeking to understand our current priorities and dilemmas by examining the ways they might play out in times to come. So most of my career has been devoted to the creation of research information portals and services. But yes, most recently I spent 4 years working on open science programs and policy in the federal government. When I came back to academia in late 2024, I thought about what I wanted to do next, and I found I didn't want to write more dispassionate policy reports. Rather, I wanted to write in ways that would inspire people's imagination and aspirations for the future. So I turned to this genre of literature that I've always valued, science fiction, and asked myself some questions. Well, going way back, we have this iconic image of sedentary monks preserving information diligently by hand in the Dark Ages. So I wondered, well, what if that idea was embodied in a secular scientific organization that traveled the stars to bring information access to fallen civilizations? Well, that seemed like a compelling an inspirational starting place to tell a story about fighting tyranny and disinformation with access to accurate scientific information. So I started writing a science fiction series that was set in the distant future among the stars about that concept of an interstellar scientific secular group of monks, so to speak, called sojourners, trying to share information with collapsed societies which, because of oppression and tyranny, have lost all their knowledge of the past. And I went on from there. Tom, I've always admired your efforts in shining a light on tyranny and oppression by means of your books and interviews, fighting disinformation with accurate understanding of facts. That's why I really wanted to come on your show and talk about these first two books I've written in this series that was called the Sojourner Saga, which were just published yesterday.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, okay. And the titles of the books again are?
Helmsman and Pilgrim. Real simple. You can find them in Amazon. Just search Helmsman and by Martin Halbert.
Yeah, Martin Halbert. So if neo-feudalism rules the future, how would ruthless political and technological power show up? I mean, are we there yet? Are we one of those failed civilizations you're writing about?
We are right on the edge of it, aren't we? Between all of the media, well, your callers were just talking about the domination of the media by right-wing forces. We have so many new technologies for spreading disinformation that I think we are really on the precipice, even if you discount, whether AI is going to run amok, whether, we have Grok running new military programs for us after it's proclaimed itself Mecha Hitler just last year. So, yeah, we might be on the verge of that. And what are the institutions that are going to help preserve information? Well, I think we know many of them. They are the progressive press, they are libraries, they are information resources and scientific organizations in academia.
Mm-hmm. And how best can average Americans, in your opinion, you're an information scientist, I suspect you have a fairly good understanding of, AI and where we're heading with all of this. How can we best deal with this, interact with it in a way that might enhance our democracy rather than crush it?
No kidding. Well, I teach AI in my classes on information science, and the field, this area of technology is changing very rapidly. Although there is a lot of understandable resistance to using AI that I understand, and I actually have a lot of reservations about using it, we need to be familiar with it. We need to understand what it's capable of. We need to understand what it is good for, what it is not good for. The interesting aspect to me of just the last 6 months is that the various AI systems that are out there are very quickly differentiating themselves in terms of different technologies and integrations that they're focusing on. Like Microsoft's Copilot is working on integration with the Microsoft app suite, and Google Gemini with the Google suite of applications and so forth. We need to understand what they are capable of, where they fail, where their limitations are, and where they're going.
Are they trying to lock us into their own little ecosystems? Is that the deal?
Absolutely. Well, of course they are. That's a general approach of most technological, companies, is to get you. Yeah, and also to commodify information that should be public. That's a particular concern of mine.
Yeah.
And preserving that access over time is something that I think we need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And not assume that information that is generated digitally is always going to be there if we don't undertake efforts to preserve it.
Well said. Professor Martin Halbert, and your two books are titled again?
Helmsman and Pilgrim are the first two books of the Sojourner saga. Thank you for having me on, Tom. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Professor. Thank you so much for dropping by, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Is CNN the new CBS? Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Good day. America is in the grip of something larger than a partisan clash. What we're witnessing is a steady consolidation of power over the institutions that sustain self-government. The courts, the ballot, the border, the press. Each story tonight stands on its own, but taken together, they sketch a portrait of a republic under strain. First, the media. Netflix has abandoned its $83 billion bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. That clears the path for Paramount Skydance to take control, potentially placing CNN and CBS News under the same corporate roof. Journalists inside both organizations are sounding alarms. The concern is not simply downsizing, it is direction. David Ellison has acknowledged conversations with Donald Trump that included CNN. His father, Larry Ellison, the largest shareholder in Paramount Skydance, reportedly discussed removing anchors who have drawn Trump's anger. At CBS, Barry Weiss was installed as editor-in-chief last fall, and amid regulatory pressure from Trump-aligned officials, despite lacking any television experience whatsoever. Press freedom advocates warn that corporate consolidation paired with political access can dull the edge of independent reporting. The deal still faces antitrust review, yet the trajectory is clear. When news organizations become assets in the portfolios of billionaires with political interests, journalism risks becoming negotiation instead of investigation. In Buffalo, New York, a Rohingya refugee named Nurul Amin Shah Alam was dropped off by Border Patrol agents at what officials described as a warm and safe location near his last known address. Alam was nearly blind, walked with a stick, and spoke little English. 5 days later, he was found dead. Surveillance footage later revealed that the Tim Hortons where he was left was closed. He stood alone in the freezing parking lot in below freezing temperatures for more than an hour after the store shut. Agents did not contact his family or his lawyer. Even after the video emerged, the Department of Homeland Security continued to describe the location as warm and safe, a lie. Local officials have called the death preventable and disturbing. The larger issue is not only negligence, it's whether truth still constrains power. When official statements persist in defiance of documented evidence, public trust collapses. Democracies rely on accountability, and without it, cruelty becomes administrative routine. Overseas, the United States may be approaching direct military action against Iran. The State Department has ordered non-essential personnel and their families out of Israel. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sent a message shortly after midnight urging staff to book flights immediately. American citizens were advised to consider departing while commercial options remain. Diplomatic talks in Geneva ended without resolution. No joint statements followed. 2 carrier strike groups are positioned in the region. Oman's foreign minister rushed to Washington to press for more time. Vice President Vance has said that there's no chance the United States will be drawn into years of war. It also acknowledged uncertainty about whether Trump will authorize a strike. The next round of talks is scheduled in Vienna, though. Whether it occurs is uncertain. Constitutional balance here is at stake. The authority to declare war rests exclusively with Congress. When momentum builds through executive channels without sustained public debate, we the people are distanced from the gravest decision a nation can make. At home, scrutiny has turned toward the machinery of voting itself. The FBI recently raided the Fulton County Elections Office using a debunked affidavit. Tulsi Gabbard was present. She had earlier overseen the seizure of voting equipment in Puerto Rico, despite the territory's transition to paper ballots. Donald Trump has publicly called for nationalizing elections in multiple jurisdictions. The legal pathway traces back to Executive Order 13848, originally crafted to sanction foreign election interference. Amendments permit property to be blocked during active investigations without conclusive proof. Critics warn that voting machines could be seized and evidence classified, leaving states unable to certify their own results in a timely manner. Even if courts later intervene, the delay alone can corrode confidence. Self-government depends on the peaceful acceptance of verified outcomes. Undermine that faith, and the structure weakens. Across media consolidation, border enforcement, military brinksmanship, and election control, a pattern is emerging. Authority concentrates while transparency recedes. The health of a democracy is measured not by the power of its leaders, but by the resilience of its checks. When those checks falter, the burden shifts to citizens to demand the restoration. And that's the way it is Friday, February 27th, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann. You know, Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew both took cash bribes while they were in the White House. Since then, you know, the Supreme Court, or at least 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court, made it a lot easier for politicians to take bribes with their Citizens United decision, which basically legalized political bribery as long as it's done through campaigns or PACs or super PACs. But for some people, there's just never enough money, right? Donald Trump has been running small-time hustles to make money for decades, selling sneakers, Bibles, steaks, vodka, water. But now he's hit the big time. He's got these fungible tokens, right? These fungible crypto assets, which are basically just digital pictures of Donald Trump that say fight, fight, fight. And he has turned them into an $8 billion machine. His wife is in on this too, with his Trump coin. It's a new way that foreign powers and billionaires in the United States can just shovel money into Donald Trump's pocket. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled Presidential Payola, the Evolution of Political Bribery. Check it out.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the final hour, the third hour of our program here this Friday. Netflix ditches its deal for Warner Brothers Discovery. You know, in 1983, Ronald Reagan ordered the Federal Trade Commission, the Department of Justice, and the Securities and Exchange Commission to stop, functionally, stop enforcing the law's anti-monopoly laws. This led to a period of time that those of you old enough to remember will remember this from all the headlines and the news stories. Other people read it in the history books. It was referred to as the M&A mania. M as in mergers and A as in acquisitions. M&A mania. And you had this guy, Michael Milken, and you had, Chainsaw Al Dunlop with Sunbeam, and you had Jack Welch, and you had all these famous guys who were out there buying up companies and smashing them together and gaining efficiencies thereby. For example, you buy 3 different companies, you don't need 3 sets of accountants, right? You don't need three back office operations. You don't need 3 legal operations anymore. You don't need three people answering the phones or whatever. You can consolidate all that into one. And so what happened was, and again, ask your grandpa about this or your parents, depending on how old you are. What were most small towns or even big cities in America? What were their downtowns like when Ronald Reagan came into office in 1981? And they will tell you that they were filled with locally owned businesses. There was the local furniture store that was owned by a family. The one in East Lansing, where I lived for quite a while, is Jacobson's. There was the Jacobson family. You had a local dime store. It was, owned by a local family. You had a local bookstore that was owned by a local family. You had multiple restaurants and hotels that were all owned by local families. You had a local bank that was owned by local people. All of that is gone now. That whole landscape of small, local, identifiable businesses has vanished. And now we have a handful of companies in the hotel business, in the restaurant business, in the furniture business, in the retail business. You pick, you name it, bookstores, whatever, that have just come to dominate all of this stuff. And the same is true of our media. There were about 50 companies in 1980 when Reagan came into office, about 50 companies that controlled about 90% of all the media in the United States. And they were competing with each other. All these local and regional television and radio stations, and yes, we had the big 3 TV networks, but they didn't even own most of the radio or the television stations that they were broadcast on. They were owned by local families. I worked for WJIM TV in Lansing, Michigan. It was owned by a local family. In fact, they named the station. They built the station. They got the license and built the station 2 years after their son was born. This was back in the 1960s, maybe 50s. And his name was Jim, so it was WJIM, right? So all that is gone now. And now we have arguably 5 companies that control the vast majority of our media, and they're all run by or owned in large part by right-wing billionaires. And it's getting, it's getting far worse here. Paramount, which is now Larry and David Ellison. Larry Ellison made his fortune with Oracle. His son David is a trust fund baby. He's the front guy. He's the one who's doing this. Larry's the guy who hangs out with Donald Trump all the time. They bought Paramount, which included CBS, and so they've flipped the CBS News operation into a mini MAGA operation. And now they're going to acquire CNN. And we're going to have another mini Fox News. And then, of course, you got Fox News that's owned by, the Murdoch family, another billionaire family, although they're Australian. They don't give a rat's ass what happens in America. Just keep making money. And, twice in court, they've publicly said, we lie to people. We call it entertainment. We're here to make money, not to distribute the news. I mean, this is the essence of what they argued in particular in that Dominion voting machine company case. So this week, Paramount raised its bid to buy the entirety of Warner Brothers, which includes CNN, to $31 a share. They had been at $27.75, or that was what Netflix was offering. And here we are now. We're looking at more media consolidation. Robert Reich said it very, very well over on Blue Sky. He said the richest man owns X. The second richest and third richest men control Google. The fourth richest man owns Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. The fifth richest man owns the Washington Post. And now the sixth richest man could soon take over both Paramount and Warner Brothers, which is CBS and CNN. He says, see the problem here? Yeah, you think? Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve is hitting back at Jeanine Pirro. This is fascinating stuff. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro has been waging a battle. You know, she went after Jerome Powell. Trump, you know, basically, well, here's the thing. She was at the White House event on January 8th, and Trump turned to all of his people and demanded that his U.S. attorneys speed up his revenge cases. And so the next day, she issued a couple of subpoenas, you know, about Jerome Powell, and they're trying to prove that when he testified before Congress and said, yes, we're building a new Fed building or a new Fed annex or whatever it is, and it's going to cost this amount of billions of dollars, that he lied somehow. And therefore, you know, they're going to try and get him on perjury before Congress, lying to Congress. Powell is pushing back. He issued a video statement saying that this is just a weaponization of the federal prosecutorial apparatus against him because he refuses to lower interest rates. So, but what's interesting is that this case against Powell has kind of thrown a monkey wrench into Trump's plan to replace Powell as Fed chair with a guy named Kevin Warsh, who will be a loyal toady. Kevin Warsh has a long history of being a loyal toady to the hard right. And the problem is that they've got to have Thom Tillis, the Republican from North Carolina. They've got to have Thom Tillis vote for Warsh, both in committee and on the floor of the Senate, in order to get him appointed. And Thom Tillis is saying, I'm not going to do that as long as you're trying to prosecute Jerome Powell. So I think that's fascinating. He says, you know, you clean up this investigation about Powell and I'll talk with you, but otherwise, no thanks. So what's on your mind today? It is Anything Goes weekend after all. Tom in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Hey, I understand that, you know, the FCC can't regulate cable television, but, and I know we don't have both houses of Congress, or either one of them, actually, but when we do get control, what you're just talking about, and cable television, can't they be regulated under interstate commerce?
I think that's a good question.
I mean, Kennedy brought out, you know, interstate commerce for the busing problems during the civil rights, and he was able to, you know, quash that a little bit. But these companies, they are selling goods and services across state lines, either like Comcast itself or, you know, Fox News as an individual.
Yeah.
So if they're business across state lines, it seems like Congress can regulate them.
Well, the FCC already has very limited regulatory power over cable. It has more, none of it has to do with content. But they can review mergers, they can review ownership, they can enforce emergency systems, they can enforce must-carry rules for local broadcast stations. They can oversee cable franchise rules, although most franchising is local. So I'm not sure how interstate commerce would necessarily, I mean, you know, most of what they can do has to do with net neutrality and consolidation of companies and spectrum allocation.
What I would like them to do is, you know, maybe like drug companies put up a warning sign at the beginning of every show and at the top of every hour. Fox News can rot your brain.
Yeah.
You automatically can go to be a hateful person or something like that, you know. So people get the warning signs at least that, you know, these people are not telling the truth.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, Tom. I would love to see it. I think the best thing we can do is, to inform people that if Grandpa is watching Fox all the time, you do have these tools, these child protection tools, where you can lock Fox out of his cable system. Tom, thanks for the call. I mean, that's what Jen, I'm forgetting her last name, did, the woman who wrote The Brainwashing of My Dad.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Jen Zenko. 16 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back, Ed in Portland. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'd like to take a dive into policy and share some thoughts with you and see if you think this has any possibility of getting legs. Mm-hmm. I've been thinking a lot since the Supreme Court threw out the constitutionality of the previous tariff regime. Rather than spending time pandering to easy political points by introducing bills to, force the government to immediately refund the illegally obtained tariff revenue, I'd like to go bigger. I'd like to go even strike harder. To my understanding, the big ugly bill was shoved through the Senate by a reconciliation process.
It's true.
And so by having a financial reconciliation process, it avoided having a filibuster, and they shoved it through. And everything the Republicans are doing, everything we hate, depends upon that bill being law. Well, the reconciliation process depends upon having a revenue component, and the proposed revenues that would be realized by tariffs, which of course were not even remotely realized in actuality, were part of that reconciliation process. Now, that revenues fell below prediction isn't enough to invalidate the big, beautiful bill, but the unconstitutionality of the very premise of how those revenues could be collected should be a way to reverse the legitimacy of shoving that bill through the Senate, and should be possibly a path.
Well, hang on just a second here, Ed.
Did the whole thing.
Did the so-called big, beautiful bill have anything to do with tariffs? I thought Trump just did that by executive order, citing the IEPA law, the Emergency Powers Act, which was passed, in the 80s?
To the best of my no, it's not the authorization to or not to tariff. Mm-hmm. But the reconciliation process itself is what now is questionable.
Well, that's been acknowledged for decades.
The process depends
for half a
upon
century.
being revenue neutral. Huh?
That's been out there for a half a century.
Well, the reconciliation process requires that there be a somewhat revenue neutral, you can't, there's something about revenues in the legality of the process itself.
Right.
It's not relevant.
But again, what does that have to do with tariffs? What am I missing here?
What's that?
What am I missing? The big, beautiful bill and reconciliation have nothing to do with the tariffs. How can you use them to deal with the tariffs?
I may be wrong. That's why I'm bringing it up, because I'm trying to clarify it, and I'm also trying to contact my senators and ask them to look into it.
Right.
But my understanding is that because so much of the big, beautiful bill had stuff that was budget related, the anticipated revenues from the tariffs were part of the financial calculation.
They were not.
I could be wrong, and
I'm quite sure they were not, Ed. The whole tariff thing was something that Trump did by executive order, executive power, rule by fiat kind of stuff. It had nothing, to the best of my knowledge, it had nothing to do with the big, beautiful bill. Ed, keep thinking. I like the way you think. Look forward to future conversations. Thank you, Ed. It's 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be back in just a minute. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. And this is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s, and actually as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. But it was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out.
Out in the streets, we rise together.
22 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls. Here's Sasha in Kent, Washington. Hey, Sasha, what's up?
Well, hi, Tom. Hey, I have a public service announcement for all of my friends in the Seattle area, because KBCS is our source of your show on the air. And for the first 90 minutes on February 16th, President's Day, the feed was down. I mean, I picked it up online and found another way, but a lot of people miss it. And Tom, that show on President's Day, that was gangbusters, that first 90 minutes. So people need to know to try and catch it on their free time, maybe this weekend when they're having a missing hearing Thom Hartmann moment.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Sasha.
Two other little quick things. You just had a stellar guest, and it reminded me, I'm great with one-liners. Here's my one-liner on AI. Are you ready? Open the pod bay doors, Hal. I can't do that, Dave.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Sasha. Rachel in Ormond Beach, Florida. Hey, Rachel, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I wanted to thank you for your show and tell you that I log into the chat each day, and there's a great group of people over there. They help me get my daily dose of sanity on top of what you're doing.
It's great to hear. That's on YouTube. Yeah, there is a great group of people there. And some fine moderators.
They're wonderful. They're very supportive and encouraging, and they share links. I mean, just really incredible people. Yeah. So I called because I was on a call last night about the next No Kings that'll be on March 28th. And someone had an excellent idea because, we've had these marches and people come and they march and they hold their signs, they wave their flags, and then they go away. And someone said, we're not going to do that again. We're going to have a table that says next steps. And we're going to talk to people, interface with them, find out what they're good at, what they'd like to get plugged into, and then grab them while they're there.
Yeah.
So I thought for anybody that's organizing, maybe that would be a good thought.
Yeah, and pass out voter registration information, too.
Yeah, we need that. And then my other tiny little thought is just no matter where you are with organizing, there's a lot of power in two people showing up with signs and standing. And 2 turns into 12. And for my little group, it's turned into 85 people every week.
Marvelous.
That, stand behind a guardrail and a bridge.
That's in Ormond Beach, Florida.
Ormond Beach, yeah. So
very cool.
We go either from 3 to 5:15 or 4 to 6:15, but we get all the people that are leaving work and going to pick up kids at school. And each week, 5 more people show up and say, "Oh, I want to be part of this." So I just encourage anybody who feels like deflated or disempowered, just to go out there and you'll find your people. They'll find you.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's marvelous, Rachel. Thank you for the inspiration. It's great to hear from you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for your show.
Yep. Beachside Bill in Orlando, Florida. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Afternoon, Tom. Hope everybody's well out there and everything's well and doing good here. I just got home. I just donated my 161st gallon of blood. So that's I just got home and I'm tired. It keeps me young, Tom. Keeps me young.
It does.
Keeps me,
it literally does. It stimulates the production of stem cells.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like the next day is like a high from the 1970s. You know, I'll feel it tomorrow. I mean, I'll feel it. You know, it's like that high we had in the 1970s when, you remember those highs. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so I have a quick couple things here. First thing, we should change the Epstein files to the Trumpstein files and drop the E there. Trumpstein files.
Yeah. Okay, good one.
But the Trumpstein files. I think that is one word because people caught up with the two words. But my other point is Ashley Moody, Senator Ashley Moody. She was Florida's Attorney General right after Pam Bondi from 2019 to 2025. She should be investigated too because she knew about the Trumpstein files, I believe, fully, and she needs to be.
So both Bondi and Moody, that's a fascinating insight, Bill. Bill, thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for listening to us on Sirius XM there in Orlando. Good talking to you. 27 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the True People's Media. We'll be right back with your call. Good day. America is in the grip of something larger than a partisan clash. What we're witnessing is a steady consolidation of power over the institutions that sustain self-government. The courts, the ballot, the border, the press. Each story tonight stands on its own, but taken together, they sketch a portrait of a republic under strain. First, the media. Netflix has abandoned its $83 billion bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. That clears the path for Paramount Skydance to take control, potentially placing CNN and CBS News under the same corporate roof. Journalists inside both organizations are sounding alarms. The concern is not simply downsizing, it is direction. David Ellison has acknowledged conversations with Donald Trump that included CNN. His father, Larry Ellison, the largest shareholder in Paramount Skydance, reportedly discussed removing anchors who have drawn Trump's anger. At CBS, Barry Weiss was installed as editor-in-chief last fall, and amid regulatory pressure from Trump-aligned officials, despite lacking any television experience whatsoever. Press freedom advocates warn that corporate consolidation paired with political access can dull the edge of independent reporting. The deal still faces antitrust review, yet the trajectory is clear. When news organizations become assets in the portfolios of billionaires with political interests, journalism risks becoming negotiation instead of investigation. In Buffalo, New York, a Rohingya refugee named Nurul Amin Shah Alam was dropped off by Border Patrol agents at what officials described as a warm and safe location near his last known address. Alam was nearly blind, walked with a stick, and spoke little English. 5 days later, he was found dead. Surveillance footage later revealed that the Tim Hortons where he was left was closed. He stood alone in the freezing parking lot in below freezing temperatures for more than an hour after the store shut. Agents did not contact his family or his lawyer. Even after the video emerged, the Department of Homeland Security continued to describe the location as warm and safe, a lie. Local officials have called the death preventable and disturbing. The larger issue is not only negligence, it's whether truth still constrains power. When official statements persist in defiance of documented evidence, public trust collapses. Democracies rely on accountability, and without it, cruelty becomes administrative routine. Overseas, the United States may be approaching direct military action against Iran. The State Department has ordered non-essential personnel and their families out of Israel. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sent a message shortly after midnight urging staff to book flights immediately. American citizens were advised to consider departing while commercial options remain. Diplomatic talks in Geneva ended without resolution. No joint statements followed. Two carrier strike groups are positioned in the region. Oman's foreign minister rushed to Washington to press for more time. Vice President Vance has said that there's no chance the United States will be drawn into years of war. It also acknowledged uncertainty about whether Trump will authorize a strike. The next round of talks is scheduled in Vienna, though. Whether it occurs is uncertain. Constitutional balance here is at stake. The authority to declare war rests exclusively with Congress. When momentum builds through executive channels without sustained public debate, we the people are distanced from the gravest decision a nation can make. At home, scrutiny has turned toward the machinery of voting itself. The FBI recently raided the Fulton County Elections Office using a debunked affidavit. Tulsi Gabbard was present. She had earlier overseen the seizure of voting equipment in Puerto Rico, despite the territory's transition to paper ballots. Donald Trump has publicly called for nationalizing elections in multiple jurisdictions. The legal pathway traces back to Executive Order 13848, originally crafted to sanction foreign election interference. Amendments permit property to be blocked during active investigations without conclusive proof. Critics warn that voting machines could be seized and evidence classified, leaving states unable to certify their own results in a timely manner. Even if courts later intervene, the delay alone can corrode confidence. Self-government depends on the peaceful acceptance of verified outcomes. Undermine that faith, and the structure weakens. Across media consolidation, border enforcement, military brinksmanship, and election control, a pattern is emerging. Authority concentrates while transparency recedes. The health of a democracy is measured not by the power of its leaders, but by the resilience of its checks. When those checks falter, the burden shifts to citizens to demand the restoration. And that's the way it is Friday, February 27th, 2026. I'm Thom Hartmann. So between his tax cuts and crashing the debt ceiling and shifting billions of Treasury dollars into crypto and tariffs and all this other stuff, Trump is threatening to crash our economy. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about that. Why would that be? Well, first off, economic disasters are great excuses to cut taxes. Both Reagan and George W. Bush used recessions as their excuse to stimulate the economy by cutting trillions from the taxes of billionaires. Secondly, economic crises increase the tolerance for strongman governments. Hitler rode to power in Europe based on the Great Depression. And third, billionaires make a fortune when there's a market crash because they can buy all the stock that average people are trying to unload from their 401ks to pay the damn rent. There's a whole article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Crashing the Economy, Trump's Blueprint for Power and Profit. Check it out. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, or one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag you're it. From Los Angeles to Columbia, South Carolina, from Birmingham, Alabama to Baltimore, universal basic income programs are chalking up proof after proof of their viability. Basically just giving people, low-income people, poor people, somewhere between $500 and $1,500 a month, no strings attached, is lifting people out of poverty, getting them back on track, getting them into solid middle-class jobs, helping their children tremendously. This works. Now, we don't have to do UBI in the United States. We're the only developed country in the world that doesn't have a national health care program. Health expenses are whacking a lot of low-income people. We're the only developed country in the world that doesn't have free college education. Education expenses are whacking people. There's a lot we could do. We can subsidize housing. We can subsidize food. We do that with food stamps. We could expand it. There's a lot we could do to benefit from this. There's a whole report about that over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Back 35 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls here today. Charles in northern Pennsylvania. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how are you doing? Thanks for all that you do. I want to talk about these elections coming up, midterms. Suppose that as the Republicans are monitoring all this and Trump, and they see that they're losing badly in many states, Trump decides to send his thugs in to seize all the machines and all the ballots, pack them in their trucks, and drive off with them.
I think this is what him and Tulsi Gabbard are setting up right now.
I do. I think that's precisely what's going to happen. My question is, we are screwed if that's the case. I mean, once they seize the ballots and put them in their trucks, election is over. Has anyone been doing anything to combat this? I mean, what recourse do we have if this happens?
It's a good question, Charles. I don't know the answer. I've heard from Democratic politicians and, reading Mark Elias's newsletter and stuff like that, that, they're planning legal challenges, but we both know the legal challenges. I mean, Trump's tariffs were challenged. They were unconstitutional, illegal, and yet the courts let him do it for a full year. So, and we can't wait a year for an election to happen.
No.
I'm guessing there would be some.
That's not a solution.
Yeah, I'm guessing there'd be some kind of expedited response. The other big question in my mind is whether the 6 right-wingers on the Supreme Court, and particularly the arguably 5 who are just disgustingly corrupt, are willing to back him up in a coup, in taking over the United States government and turning us into a fascist state. And I don't know the answer to that question either, Charles. So to a large extent, we just need to keep waving the flag, waking people up, informing people about what's going on. My article today is all about voting over at HartmannReport.com. Share that with other people. Just wake up as many people as you can. We've just got to increase the pressure on these guys, particularly on the Republican members of Congress.
Yes, I know. But what worries me is once they gain control of the ballots, we're done. Especially if they have them in their possession for any length of time, they're not going to be.
No, I totally get it. We're repeating ourselves here, Charles, but spot on. Thank you for the call, Steve in Seattle. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hi there. I had this idea of something that the Democrats could do in the case of like the State of the Union when they look kind of weak. Mm-hmm. They preemptively announced that we're going to walk out one by one at every lie that's told.
Yeah.
And then throughout the address, people would walk out. There'd be an ongoing count. It would raise that issue to the, well, is that a lie? So we get back to some facts maybe.
Yeah, I like that. And walk out with your hand in the air, indicating the number of the lie.
Number 15.
Yeah,
number
exactly.
25.
Yeah. I love that,
anyway,
Steve. That's a great idea.
That's all I had, and thanks for all you do.
Well, that's a good one, Steve. Thank you. Keep thinking. Ruth in DeSoto, Missouri. Excuse me. Hey, Ruth, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
And thanks for all that you do. I want to talk about Graham Plattner that's running for Senate to unseat Susan Collins.
In the primary against Janet Mills, the governor of Maine.
I cannot understand why he's running ahead of Janet Mills. That perplexes me. But I don't think that the voters know that he worked for Blackwater in 2018 as a mercenary. And this was after the massacre in 2007. Mm-hmm. So I suspect that's where his tattoos originated.
Yeah, probably. And I think that the Maine voters know all that stuff. I mean, he's been quite forthcoming about his whole background and, his anti-Semitic and racist comments. And, he was like, that was a different me. That was when I was, dumb and young. And I've seen the light. I think you've got Maine voters believing in redemption. I mean, Maine is a very small state population-wise. So people, it's a community where people know each other. And, I think that his, I'm happy with either one of them in the Senate, first of all. But I think that his level of candor around all this stuff has really served him well. Most politicians try to hide those kind of things.
I appreciate that. I didn't know that he was making it known that he worked for Blackwater.
Well, I don't know about the Blackwater specifically, but he has not, to the best of my knowledge, he's not tried to hide any part of his past, including some really dark stuff. And I've heard, some really tough interviews that he did. One in particular on Fresh Air, but where the interviewers just dismantled him, in some ways. But he stood up to it and made it through. So we'll see. I mean, it's up to the citizens of Maine, frankly, Ruth. But
I just pray they don't end up with a Fetterman, I don't
think that's going to happen. I really don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, Fetterman has turned into a massive disappointment, but I have a feeling that his stroke has affected his mental health, frankly. I think the man is mentally ill.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah,
so
okay.
You have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you. You too, Ruth. Jeff in Portland. Hey, Jeff. Thanks for listening to X-Ray FM. What's up?
Happy Friday, Tom. Great show. Lots of great calls today. I particularly wanted to agree with Lori and Ocala, who called in last hour, talking about the Democrats needing to get back to D.C. ASAP to vote on the Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey bipartisan war powers resolution in the House. There's also one in the Senate with Tim Kaine and Rand Paul sponsoring that one. And, your Hartmann report today, of course, lays out a dire scenario on why we can't let Trump pull us into another disastrous war in the Middle East. Paul Krugman also had a Substack piece today talking about why Trump's fascist takeover is so far failing compared to Hitler, Putin, and Orban's successes. And that's because Paul says that those three inherited terrible economies, obviously in Hitler's case, a terrible depression, and turning those around, they were, all three of them to some degree turned those economies around, whereas Biden, the economy Trump inherited from Biden wasn't nearly as bad as Trump decried. Right. And obviously Trump has made it far worse for working people. So, but unfortunately, in my opinion, that argument only lends more credence to your intro, to your warning and intro today, Tom, that Trump is getting desperate and, thus more likely to try something crazy and drastic to take over the election. So, let's get the war powers resolutions voted on. Let's get those calls into Congress for them to do that. Let's run on affordability, anti-oligarchy, and accountability. But let's keep reminding people that this guy has no honor. He can't stand losing. With the oligarchs taking over the media, we're in dangerous waters, and we can't take free and fair elections for granted. Your thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, Jeff. And it's the old saying, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And that's what I try to provide on this program. And hopefully we are all, providing or sharing with our friends, neighbors, coworkers, community, whatever, that eternal vigilance, because that's what we've got to do. We've got to keep our eyes open. Thank you, Jeff. Always nice hearing from you. Appreciate it. 43 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Speaking the truth, J.D. Vance would really rather you didn't know all about. I'll be right back with you. And welcome back. Norma in Montgomery, Alabama. Hey, Norma, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Long time no speak. First of all, here in Alabama, we have a thing going on with Alabama Power. And they have trying to remove our ability to elect the people who run the Public Service Commission and appoint people more or less for life.
Oh,
we have got it stopped right now. But everybody's power bill here is jumping through the roof. A guy with an empty house he inherited, he's gutted. His bill went from $100 to $800.
Wow.
And, oh, yeah.
In an empty house.
Some people are an empty house. Some people, we all have these electronic meters that transmit. They no longer read the meters.
Right.
And some people, their bill has gone from $300 to $600, and their power is being cut off.
Wow.
And this is a poor state. But also, they're talking about building new AI centers here, and we're trying to stop it. There's one in Georgia that's going to pollute the Tallapoosa, which is one of the main water sources for 50 cities, including Montgomery.
Right.
And they don't even understand what it will do. And I've read reports about people living next to one that the noise is constant, like a continuous lawnmower that never turns off. And that the light from running the gas motors that generate electricity produce so much light that the people had to buy a blackout curtain.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
But also, I am still doing my walking and talking, and I'm teaching the Save the Vote Act. And I'm hoping that the representatives who live in the Republican states where they have blizzards and they use mail-in ballots will take a hard look at that and not pass the Save the Vote Act.
Yeah.
You know, and having to come up with your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, your Social Security card, your driver's license has to match, and you have to have proof of residence in the precincts in which you want to vote, which means you need a copy of your power bill or your water bill. And I keep teaching this, and I come home hoarse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
They're doing everything they can to make it harder for you to vote. And you know, a lot of people in rural America, we used to live in rural New Hampshire and rural Vermont, vote by mail in red areas.
Yes.
Because it's,
my kid sister's still in Vermont. Yeah, and I have a Facebook friend. I hope that she's listening. She's in New Hampshire.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and I have other people, across the country that I send messages to. But I don't know how to get through to people that if we don't win, we're done. And I'm afraid that Trump will try something like sending people a tariff refund in October to stop people from voting Democratic. But if we don't win, we have too many people running for governor. Doug Jones is running, and I'll be working for him. But it just appalls me that people are so complacent and ignorant.
Yeah, it's sad. And to a large extent, Norma, it's an indictment of our media system. But, it's always so nice to hear from you, Norma. I'm so glad you're still out there walking and talking. Keep it up.
One thing, Tom, everybody can send $10 to the ACLU and get a
Great
copy
suggestion.
of the Constitution.
Okay. Thank you, Norma. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? At the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive and bros, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
He stands so high beneath the lights, points his finger in the night, calls his neighbors something less than human. Says they're crazy, says they're wrong, says they never did belong. Like the country's just a club he's choosing.
Welcome back. 49 minutes past the hour, and we had a right-winger calling in. I was just about to hit the button, and he dropped off. Alan in Seattle. Hey, Alan, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Good morning.
Hey.
I'm just going to talk about the Epstein files in relation to the previous failure of the FBI and the Department of Justice to adequately investigate the Larry Nassar abuse of our Olympic gymnasts.
Oh, we have a long history of ignoring sexual abuse. I mean, it's true in every male-dominated society, which is basically every society.
Yes, Simone Biles, Ali Reisman, and I think 90 other defendants sued them under an administrative claim filed under the Federal Tort Claim Act. I don't know how they do that. I don't know that law. But they finally settled with the abused women in 2024 for $138 million. But honestly, money isn't gonna take away the harm.
They were looking for the conviction.
And
No, I get it.
What they need is accountability, and need to see a lot of these guys go to jail.
I'm with you. Thank you, Alan. Spot on. CJ in Stoughton, Wisconsin. Hey, CJ, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. You always do. I'm a conservative, and you're okay with that, or at least you're willing to talk to me. Unlike most of the hosts of the radio station, you're syndicated in Madison. But my dad used to say something. He used to say, liars figure, but figures don't lie.
Yeah, it's Abraham Lincoln used to say that. That's where the expression came from.
Oh, wow. Well, my dad was wasn't a man of a lot of words, but when he talked, he was pretty wise, and I wish I would have listened to him more. But
yeah, me too.
I hear the Democrats speak of affordability, and one thing that is factual, and they don't lie, in 2020, President Trump handed over 1.4% inflation and 2.5% mortgage.
That's because we were in the middle of a national crisis worse than we'd seen since the flu pandemic of World War I.
Well, the economy was booming until COVID. But when they talk about...
But you say 2020, that was COVID.
Over to Trump, when Biden campaigned that he handed it back over to Trump with 3.3, what did he do? How did he get that? He drove interest rates up to 9.5%. to get the inflation rate
Biden didn't do that. Jerome Powell did that. The Republican appointee that Donald Trump put into the Fed.
Oh, my gosh, Tom. Look,
presidents don't control interest rates, CJ. You know that. Come on, you're not that dumb.
Okay. Look at a graph year for year while a president was in office, and you tell me inflation and interest rate didn't shoot to the moon. Well, you can read a graph.
Oh, in the first year of Biden's administration? Of course.
Very simple.
Of course. And you know why, CJ?
Lie.
Yeah, you know why that inflation happened. It was the exact same reason. We had similar inflation after the end of World War I. We had similar inflation a huge inflation after the end of World War II. That got Harry Truman and Dwight Eisenhower. And that's why we had terrible inflation during the Nixon administration after the Arab oil embargo. Whenever you have a reduction in the availability of goods and services, whether it's because of war or because of a boycott, or in this case because of the flu pandemic or the COVID pandemic, when that diminution of availability, when the availability of goods returns, when those goods come back, people rush in to buy things, and that demand for things drives up inflation. This had nothing to do with policy. This was absolutely predictable.
People can't afford a home, and that's because of Biden and the Democrat Party. And
there is no such thing as a Democrat Party, CJ. It's the Democratic Party. There is no Democrat Party.
I don't mean to do that.
Yeah, that's quite all right. But hang on just a second. I mean, it's been the Republicans who've been cheerleading for big corporations buying our houses. How is that a Democratic problem?
He just signed an executive order to not allow it.
I know, and it's going to be meaningless.
How can you even say that?
It's completely meaningless.
Oh, my gosh.
He's figured out that what the Democrats have been saying...
Who signed the executive order to not allow corporations to buy up all the single families?
And it's meaningless.
Who just signed the executive order, Tom?
And it's meaningless, CJ. I would love to have seen Biden do something like that, too. But again, it's meaningless. We need legislation. You need actual legislation. And the Republicans have fought that. Democrats have proposed legislation to get hedge funds and big corporations out of the single family housing market for a decade now. And Republicans fight them tooth and nail.
Joe
You can
Biden
look it up.
didn't sign it, did he?
No.
He did not sign it, did he?
No,
Donald
the
Trump
Democrats have
signed
not
the
accomplished this
executive
either.
order
Nobody
not
wants to
allow-
take on the big
You're
guys.
just talking in circles.
Nobody wants to
mean,
take on these big
ridiculous.
money
The
bankers
facts
out of
are
New York,
facts.
CJ,
The numbers
because
don't lie, and you
five
can't
right-wingers
convince
on the Supreme Court legalized bribery, and everybody's afraid of that money. Republicans and Democrats.
Oh my gosh! Well, I tell you what, that was a great deflection from the numbers that are true and factual.
Okay.
But people are living what it is.
Yeah, no, I got it. We've got
Biden
a problem
cost
here.
everybody $3,000, and he's gained back already $1,400 of that.
Except he cost us all $1,500 per family for his tariffs.
Nothing to help.
$1,500 per family for our tariffs. How does that help?
Well, I tell you what, all those companies and countries are staying with those things. So he's going to go around it. Well, you know what? The Democrats could have been on the right side of this and agreed with them and stepped up.
Agreed with whom?
They're
About what?
all about votes for them. They don't want to help the American people, just the way they sat on their ass when they didn't.
CJ, it wasn't the Democrats who ran up a $38 trillion deficit by repeated tax cuts to billionaires. Yeah, really. CJ, thanks for the call. It's the end of the day. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. That includes you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. And special thanks to Louise Hartmann, Sean Taylor, Jamie Holly, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Coit, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jeremy Peterson, Connor Arroyo, Carna Verdi, Josiah Wester, Martha Salinas, Mateo Robertson, Diane Russell, Michael Rubens, and that's it. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.